Chapter 237. P.S. 500 monthly tickets plus updates, and there's a guaranteed second chapter in the afternoon. Ouyang Shua suppressed his desire for talents and continued to adjust the territory's plan. The territory's biggest financial problem is that we're over-reliant on the Wolf Mountain Mine and the Northern Twilight Saltworks. Due to the steady flow of funds from these two industries, the territory lacks the motivation to develop other industries. With the rapid expansion of the territory and army, the funds provided by these two industries are somewhat insufficient. Whether it's the Wolf Mountain Mine or the Northern Twilight Saltworks, their scale and profits have long reached their peak, and there's no more potential to be excavated. For the long term, we must boost other industries. Apart from the established core industry, the military industry, the territory's specialties, the three-flower wine and colorful silk, are both high-profit products. Unfortunately, they haven't received enough attention and are still in a half-dead state. In fact, the territory's specialties have much more potential than the Wolf Mountain Mine and the Northern Twilight Saltworks, since they have unlimited possibilities. Ouyang Shua's words were self-criticism, but also a disguised criticism of the work of the Finance Bureau. Whether it was the three-flower wine or the colorful silk, Ouyang Shua had already handed them over to the Finance Bureau to manage. Unfortunately, the Finance Bureau's steps weren't big enough and were too conservative. Ouyang Shua used his eyes to stop Yu from asking for forgiveness and said, "I've decided to set up an industry division in the Finance Bureau to be responsible for the three-flower wine, the colorful silk, and the white hair tea. At the same time, I'll take out 5,000 gold coins to support the expansion of these three industries." The specific plan includes the construction of a large winemaking workshop in the western suburbs, the three-flower wine, with a monthly output of at least 500,000 units, and the expansion of the mulberry fields to at least 10,000 mu. The white hair tea is affected by the geographical location and has a lot of uncertainty. As the three-flower wine gradually opened up the market in Dali, the price of each unit had risen to 2 silver coins, and the net profit was 150 copper coins. If the three-flower wine could achieve the expected output, the monthly profit would reach 7,500 gold coins. If the scale was expanded in the future, the profit would become even higher. After the three-flower wine was completed, a large number of refugees would be employed. According to the Textile Association's president, Ing Chui, silkworms could be raised 4 times a year in the Lianzhou Basin. 1 mu of mulberry could produce 90 units of cocoons, and on average, 3 units of cocoons could be used to produce 1 unit of silk, and 5 units of silk could be used to weave 1 bolt of silk. In other words, 1 mu of mulberry could produce 6 bolts of colorful silk. In the market, a bolt of colorful silk was sold for 1 gold coin. After deducting 10% of the transaction tax and the cost of production, the net profit was 4 gold coins. If the mulberry field reached 10,000 mu, the quarterly profit would be 40,000 gold coins, and the annual profit would be 160,000 gold coins. According to Ouyang Shua's plan, once the Three Flowers Winery and Mulberry Gardens were in place, it would be equivalent to building another Wolf Mountain Mine and Northern Twilight Saltworks, doubling their profit. The industrial plan proposed by Ouyang Shua was very inspiring. Even so, Ouyang Shua wasn't satisfied and set his sights on his core industry, the military industry. After removing the iron ore shackles, the production of the 3 major military workshops had increased, but the speed of increase was still not enough to satisfy Ouyang Shua. If the weapons and equipment couldn't satisfy the demand, how could they carry out the arms trade? Ouyang Shua looked at the president of the Falling Moon Society, Sun Xiaoye, and said, "The 3 major military workshops in the Eastern District will be open to the blacksmiths, carpenters, and tailors of the Falling Moon Society." The prerequisite was that the members of the 3 workshops had to sign a confidentiality agreement. "I hope the guild will take the lead in organizing this work." Sun Xiaoye was attending the meeting as a consultant, so it wasn't appropriate for her to say much. She only nodded to indicate that there was no problem. After 3 months of hard work, the Falling Moon Society had successfully upgraded the guild token to the silver rank. The maximum number of members was increased to 10,000, and at the same time, a guild special feature was added. After Ouyang Shuo received the news, he immediately contacted his aunt and sent a large number of life profession players recruited by Snow Rose to Shanghai County. In a short period of time, the number of members of the Falling Moon Society had exceeded 2,000, and it was still growing. The proportion of the players in the population of Shanghai County had started to increase rapidly. In order to balance the development of the territory, Ouyang Shuo had no choice but to divert some of the life profession players to Pool and Friendship County. As for Beihai County, it was temporarily not open to the players. This was because the life profession players usually brought along their families and settled down in Shanghai County. There were pros and cons to this. The players were all youngsters, and their family members could be roughly divided into 3 groups: elders, peers, and juniors. The elders were their parents and even their grandfathers. They were all experienced elders. This group of people would either choose to fish, cook, or enjoy their lives wholeheartedly. Otherwise, they would have been hired by Southwest University to serve as a teacher at the grassroots level and make use of their talent. They belonged to the most stable group. The peers were the brothers and sisters of the players, and they were all youngsters. Some of these people were also life profession players, but they were not very talented. Most of them were adventurous players. They belonged to the most unstable group. Because of this, Ouyang Shuo ordered that the disciplinary office would be opened to the bailiffs, and the government clinic would be opened to the healers. Song Jia's Eastern Fence Sword faction would recruit chivalrous players. The Taoist players also had a place to go, which was the Qingyang Temple in the western suburbs. As for the strategists and generals, they were the most miserable group. Because the Shanghai County military had temporarily not opened to the players, they had no way to join. The last group were the juniors, which were the children. These kids, like Binger, had to go to the virtual classroom every day. When they were not going to school, they would run around and play in the territory. It brought a touch of childishness to the dull territory. As Shanghai County became more and more open, the players felt more and more like Shanghai County. They began to truly see themselves as a part of Shanghai County, and not as an outsider. After Ouyang Shuo proposed a clear plan for the territory's army, subsidiary territory, structure, and industry, he finally said, "I hope that all of you will work together to implement the plan." Yes. The ministers saluted. At this point, Ouyang Shuo's one-man show officially came to an end. Just as Ouyang Shuo was planning a grand blueprint for the territory, far away in Duanren Town by East Law Lake, a big event that could affect the future of Lianzhou Basin happened. Duanren Town, Lord's Mansion. What did you say? Say it again? Domineering Blade couldn't believe it. Sir, it's absolutely true. The mountain barbarian tribe that cooperated with us found a gold mine in the forest. The mountain barbarians don't know gold mining and refining technology, so they want to cooperate with us. Good. Domineering Blade slammed the table and stood up. He paced back and forth in the meeting hall, trying hard to calm down. He looked up at the sky and sighed. God has not forsaken me. In the last territory war, Duanren Town suffered a great defeat. The army was almost wiped out, and the territory's liquid funds were also used up because of the 3 teleportation fees. In order to raise funds and rebuild an army, Domineering Blade almost sold off all the territory's resources. During that period, Domineering Blade was on tenterhooks all day, afraid that the army of Shanghai County would attack him when he woke up. Fortunately, Shanghai County's attention was diverted by Tianfeng County, and Ouyang Shuo couldn't spare any attention to the east, so Duanren Town escaped the disaster. When it rains, it pours. At this time, the price of grain suddenly rose, and Duanren Town immediately fell into a food crisis. Domineering Blade almost fell into despair when he saw that he wouldn't be able to feed them. There was a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel. The gold mine was undoubtedly the best gift God had given to Domineering Blade, allowing him to come back from the dead. "I won't let you off," Domineering Blade swore in his heart. In the afternoon, Ouyang Shuo walked out of the Marquis's mansion and arrived at the sacrificial area on the east side of the mansion. The sacrificial area was very spacious. To the north was the Heaven Sacrificial Plaza that covered an area of 100 hectares. It took up 2/3 of the area. The Heaven Sacrificial Plaza was paved with bluestone, and there were exquisite railings made of marble. There was a tall platform in the center of the plaza, and a shang cauldron was placed on top of it. Other than that, there were no decorations on the Heaven Sacrificial Plaza. There were 3 sacrificial buildings behind the Heaven Sacrificial Plaza. The one in the middle was the Yellow Emperor Temple. There were 2 new temples on both sides of the Yellow Emperor Temple. They were the basic buildings of a Tier 3 county, the Confucian Temple and the Martial Temple. Ouyang Shuo walked into the Confucian Temple. The temple had 5 courtyards with red walls and yellow tiles, including the Depei Tian Dao Guan Archway, Wanren Palace Wall, Ling Xing Gate, Pan Chi, Deshang Gate, Deshang Hall, Mingluan Hall, Zun Scripture Pavilion, and other buildings. The Confucian Temple worshipped the sages of the liberal arts. Confucius was the first sage, and his first disciple Yen Yuan was the second sage. There were 10 philosophers, 72 sages, and 22 sages. Apart from the 22 sages, the rest were all disciples of Confucius. The 10 philosophers had statues, while the 72 sages only had portrait. They were able to receive incense offerings. In the game, Gaia had made some changes to the Confucian Temple. Apart from keeping Confucius as the first sage, the 10 philosophers and the 72 sages had been replaced with sages, making the Confucian Temple more worthy of its name. Shanghai County's Fan Zhongyan was listed as one of the 72 sages. The only benefit of being listed as a sage in the Confucian Temple was that if they died in the game, they could be revived in the Confucian Temple, granting them the same immortality as the players. Ouyang Shuo took out an incense essence pill and heard the system notification. System notification: Player Wui has an incense essence pill, would you like to use it? Use it. With a whoosh, the incense essence pills turned into rays of white light and entered the statue of the virtuous minister. System notification: the statue of the sage has been nourished by the incense essence pill. The Confucian Temple has gained a new building property. Statecraft increases the rate of the officials breaking through bottlenecks by 30%. As expected of the Confucian Temple, the new building property was clearly made for the officials. To be continued. Chapter 238. Ouyang Shuo left the Confucian Temple and went to the Martial Temple on the other side. The layout of the Martial Temple was similar to that of the Confucian Temple. The Martial Arts Temple worshipped the sages and masters of martial art. Jiang Taigong was the first sage, Zhang Liang was the second sage, and behind him were the 10 philosophers and the 72 famous generals. Shi Wansui of Shanghai County was one of the 72 famous generals. Because of the long history of Wu Lai, there was no way to verify it. It was a pity that he had brushed past the 72 famous generals. Ouyang Shuo took out the last incense essence pill, and a system notification rang in his ears. System notification: players say you have no clothes is in possession of incense essence pill. Do you want to use it? Use. With a whoosh, the incense essence pills turned into streaks of white light and flew into the statue. System notification: the famous general statue has been nourished by incense essence pill. The Guanlin Temple has gained a unique property. Martial arts increase the rate of the generals in the territory breaking through their bottlenecks by 30%. The characteristics of the buildings derived from Guanlin temples rendered Sun Tingjiao, Zhao Sihu, and a large group of generals who were stuck at the beginner level speechless. It was practically a great blessing. Ouyang Shua looked forward to them breaking through their bottlenecks one by one. Ouyang Shua did not expect that the 5 inconspicuous incense essence pills that the king of Shang had given him would have such a magical effect. He was really emotional. After dinner, Ouyang Shua called all the women in the backyard together, including the maidservants Si Qin and Si Qi of the Qinying courtyard. He first looked at Ing Yu and said, after the finance department has established the industry department, the pawn shop and the inn managed by the finance department will be purchased by the Ho Manor and transferred to the Ho Manor's assets. The pawn shop and the inn were all businesses that were losing money. Ouyang Shua taking the initiative to take over them also showed the Ho Manor's magnanimity. Although Ing Yu found it a little strange, it didn't matter, so she nodded her head in agreement. In the morning's military meeting, Ouyang Shua had vaguely criticized her. Ing Yu still felt a little apologetic in her heart. She was determined to properly reorganize the territory's industry. It was naturally good to be able to get rid of the 2 burdens of the inn and shop. Ouyang Shua looked at the women and continued, as the estate of the house of the Marquis increases, the inner treasury becomes more and more full, and the number of servants also increases. The affairs of the house of the Marquis become more and more burdensome. Therefore, they had to establish rules to regulate the affairs of the house of Marquis. This Marquis has decided to establish an internal affairs department to be responsible for managing the internal affairs of the Marquis Manor. Ouyang Shua's suggestion naturally received unanimous approval. As the structure of Shanhai County became more and more mature, the internal structure of the Marquis Manor, on the other hand, did not have a set of rules. Ing Yu had long raised this matter with Ouyang Shua. Ouyang Shua looked at Song Jia and said with a smile, "The Internal Affairs Division has its own system. It manages the affairs of the Marquis Manor, and has nothing to do with the officials of the outer court. Jia, you will take over the position of the Chief Steward of the Internal Affairs Division. What do you think?" Song Jia blushed. She understood the meaning behind Ouyang Shua's words. Letting her take charge of the Internal Affairs Division was equivalent to indirectly acknowledging Song Jia's status as the Marquis' mansion's mistress. Originally, these things were only faintly discernible. Now that Ouyang Shua had pointed it out, how could she not be embarrassed? All right. Song Jia was a magnanimous person after all. Ouyang Shua nodded. This was also one of the things he admired about Song Jia. She didn't act like a little girl. Once she recognized Ouyang Shua as her husband, she wasn't afraid of others gossiping about her. In the Internal Affairs Division, other than the Chief Steward, there is also a manager and 2 assistant managers. Zisu will be in charge, while Si Qin and Si Qi will be in charge. Thank you, Marquis. Zisu and the other 2 knelt down to express their gratitude. The establishment of the Eastern Fence Sword faction was imminent. Song Jia didn't have too much energy to manage the affairs of the Marquis' mansion. Therefore, the manager of the Internal Affairs Division was the actual manager. Zisu was naturally grateful to be entrusted with such a heavy responsibility. Banxia, who was standing behind Song Jia, didn't know what to feel when she saw her sisters being valued by the Marquis. If she didn't choose to practice martial arts, she would also have a place in the Internal Affairs Division. Marquis, in a week, it will be the Mid-Autumn Festival. What request can Marquis have? Taking this opportunity, Zisu, who had just taken over, asked. Ouyang Shua was startled. He didn't expect that it would be the Mid-Autumn Festival already. As a traditional festival of China, the Mid-Autumn Festival was very important. Every festive season, people would miss their loved ones even more. I don't have any request. Just prepare according to the usual procedures. Ouyang Shua suddenly felt a little dispirited. Yes. Zisu nodded in response. Everyone is dismissed. Everyone dispersed. Ouyang Shua returned to his room. Ouyang Shua sat cross-legged on the bed. He took out the cooling bead and placed it on his palm. He closed his eyes and calmed his mind, starting to cultivate. The inner force in his meridians began to slowly circulate according to the circulation route of the yellow Thearka's internal cannon. At this moment, the cooling bead in his palm emitted a trace of cooling chi that passed through his palm and into his meridians. Stimulated by the cooling chi, the golden inner force circulated at an obvious speed. Not only that, the restless demonic god bloodline in Ouyang Shua's body also calmed down under the comfort of the cooling chi. It no longer disturbed Ouyang Shua's cultivation. It had been a whole 2 months since he cultivated the yellow Thearka's internal cannon to the 3rd level. The upper limit of the 3rd level was 5,000 points, which was 5 times higher than the 2nd level. During this period of time, Ouyang Shua diligently studied the Tao scripture and became more and more proficient in cultivation. The parts of the yellow Thearka's internal cannon that he didn't understand before gradually became clear. His understanding of the yellow Thearka's internal cannon became deeper. When he first started cultivating the yellow Thearka's internal cannon, Ouyang Shua completely relied on the cultivation knowledge that Gaia had forced into his mind. He copied it according to what Gaia had taught him. As he learned more about Taoism, Ouyang Shua tried to re-examine the yellow Thearka's internal cannon and gradually gained his own understanding. Naturally, his cultivation was different. In Ouyang Shua's dantian, traces of golden inner force were tangled together in a disorderly manner. They swam around like a ball of hemp silk, like smoke or mist, looking very illusory. Now, Ouyang Shua could circulate 7 times a day. Every circulation could increase his inner force by 8 points. After obtaining the cooling bead, his cultivation speed became even faster. He could cultivate 9 circulations. Therefore, Ouyang Shua could increase his inner force by 72 points a day. According to this cultivation speed, he could cultivate the yellow Thearka's internal cannon to the 4th level next month. From the looks of it, perseverance was important on the path of cultivation. Items that could assist in cultivation were equally important. A small cooling bead saved Ouyang Shua a lot of hard work. It was a pity that such a rare treasure could only be found by chance. Early in the morning, Ouyang Shua got up to cultivate. In order not to disturb Binger's sleep, Ouyang Shua had already moved the cultivation area from the courtyard to an empty space in the back garden. In order to complement the 8 extremities fist training, he even ordered people to set up some wooden dummies in the empty space. Ever since Song Jia arrived, there were only 2 people training in the back garden. Although Song Jia was a delicate missy in reality, she had a fierce spirit in her bones. Compared to Ouyang Shua, the manly Ouyang Shua, his enthusiasm for cultivation was not inferior at all. In the early morning, the back garden was filled with birdsong and fragrant flowers. Stepping on the grass, one could smell the fragrance of green grass. One had to say that Gaia was really amazing. The game environment was exactly the same as reality. The 2 of them greeted each other tacitly, walked to the side and began their own cultivation. As he cultivated the yellow Thearka's internal cannon, his inner force began to drive his outer force. Ouyang Shua's physical fitness was getting better day by day. Whether it was boxing or spear practice, he was getting more and more proficient. Ouyang Shua's advantage of having a high root bone and high comprehension was gradually showing its power during cultivation. Whether it was the 8 extremities fist or the Yang family's spear, they were all improving at lightning speed. His 8 extremities fist had already reached the 4th level, familiar, while his Yang family's spear had already reached the 3rd level, advanced. Ouyang Shua's current strength was comparable to Lin Yi's. His only regret was that he still hadn't found a suitable spear. Holding the refined iron spear in his hand, he couldn't use it to its full potential. Especially the spear shaft, which was made of ordinary wood without any complicated processing. It couldn't withstand Ouyang Shua's inner force at all. If Ouyang Shua channeled his inner force into the refined iron spear, there would be an obvious creak sound coming from the inside of the spear shaft. This proved that the inner force had damaged the wood texture and fibers inside the spear shaft. Ouyang Shua had no choice but to give up on channeling his inner force. He couldn't just use a spear every time he practiced. No matter how big Shanghai County was, it couldn't withstand this kind of consumption. After finishing his cultivation, Ouyang Shua was covered in sweat. His clothes were soaked in sweat. He picked up the towel on the wooden rack and wiped the sweat off his face. On the other side of the grass, Song Jia was still practicing her sword. She was very proficient with the new swordplay. A cool breeze blew, and a fallen leaf on the grass was blown up by the wind. It swayed and coincidentally collided with the sword in Song Jia's hand. The refined iron sword sliced through the air without any hindrance. It wasn't affected at all. Looking at the leaf again, it had been split into two. The cut was as smooth as a mirror. It was as if it was born with two leaves. Looking closely, there was a trace of white frost on the cut. It was the result of the 9 scripture's inner force activating. The 9 scripture could be practiced by both men and women. Different genders would have different attributes of the inner force. Song Jia's 9 scripture had a trace of ice attribute. When practiced to the extreme, it could penetrate through the heart and bones. Compared to the refined iron spear, the refined iron sword in Song Jia's hand could withstand much more inner force. That was why Song Jia could use it so recklessly. Clap, clap, clap. Ouyang Shua couldn't help but applaud. Good swordplay. Song Jia sheathed her sword and smiled at Ouyang Shua. What do you think? My swordplay is good, right? Master Song's swordplay is superb. I'm very impressed. Ouyang Shua praised. You're so talkative. Song Jia was like a proud peacock. She giggled and drew a beautiful flower with her sword. She sheathed her sword and nodded at Ouyang Shua. Then, she elegantly turned around and left. She really had the demeanor of a heroine. Ouyang Shua laughed and shook his head. He picked up his spear and returned to the backyard. Zisu had already ordered people to prepare cold water for Ouyang Shua to wash. To be continued. Chapter 239. On the morning of the 27th day of the 9th lunar month, Ouyang Shua left the city with 4 guards. His destination was the military factory built in a cave on the western outskirts of the city. The military factory was built by the Combat Readiness Division of the Military Administration. It had been 3 months since the construction started. It was mainly responsible for the production of military food pellets, tents, and ladders. Passing through the western city gate, one could see the craftsmen building the official road not far from the city gate. The starting point of the Sky Sea Road was not the current western city gate, but the western city gate of the third city wall. Although the official road was not paved with bluestone like the roads in the city, it was not easy to build. In the wilderness, weeds were overgrown. The craftsmen had to first remove the weeds and then dig the soil at the roots to prevent the weeds from growing again next year. The official road was made of ternary soil. The main materials were lime, soil, and sand. Only when the ternary soil was compacted would the weeds not grow, and it would not become muddy on rainy days. The chief engineer of the Sky Sea Road designed a road roller that was pulled by horses. He asked the blacksmith to build a cylindrical iron roller and used 8 horses to pull it, which saved a lot of manpower. Because one of the important functions of the official road was to mobilize troops and transport materials, the official road was not designed to be narrow. It was a full 20 meters wide, and there was also a good drainage system. Trees had to be transplanted on both sides of the official road. In addition, along the Sky Sea Road, there were some tributaries of the Friendship River and some hillsides, which needed to be bridged by water and cleared by mountains. The difficulty was not comparable to the construction inside the city wall. Finally, there was the most important courier system, which included courier roads and courier stations. The courier stations were for officials to spend the night. The distance between them was about a day's journey, usually about 60 kilometers. Between the courier stations, there were also simple shops for pedestrians to rest and eat. Usually, there was one shop every 10 kilometers. After leaving the city, Ouyang Shua and the others turned left and rode for less than 10 kilometers to reach the cave where the military factory was located. At the entrance of the cave, there was a big iron gate that could only be opened in an emergency. Next to the iron gate, there was a small door that could only allow one person to pass through, which was used as a passage. In front of the cave, there was a wooden warning sign with the words, "Military Restricted Area," and a small team of soldiers stood on both sides, responsible for guarding. Ouyang Shua nodded in satisfaction when he saw that the military factory was heavily guarded. After getting off the horse, Ouyang Shua handed the horse over to his guards and walked towards the gate alone. When the guard saw Ouyang Shua, he immediately saluted, "Marquis." He was about to run over to open the gate. Ouyang Shua waved his hand. "There's no need to trouble yourself. This Marquis can enter from the side door." The soldier looked troubled. "Marquis, there's no need to say anything else. I came here on a whim, so I can't mobilize everyone." "Yes." The soldier did not dare to argue anymore and respectfully opened the small door. Ouyang Shua left 2 of his personal guards outside and took the other 2 personal guards with him as he strode into the cave. The inside of the cave was not as dark as he had imagined. The walls on both sides, including the ceiling, were inlaid with small white stones that emitted a gentle white light, as bright as day. Upon closer inspection, it turned out that it was not artificially inlaid, but a natural one. Ouyang Shua knew that those small stones should be a type of fluorite, a natural light source. Looking up, the cave was more than 10 meters high and more than 150 meters wide. There was no end in sight. Such a huge cave did not make one feel depressed at all. Ouyang Shua's arrival alarmed the military factory's supervisor. He was a middle-aged man who looked extremely calm. When he received the news, he rushed over. "Marquis has come in person. This humble one has failed to welcome you." Ouyang Shua waved his hand. "This Marquis came uninvited. How about it? Show me around." "Yes." The supervisor nodded and led the way. The military factory is divided into 3 areas. They are responsible for the manufacture of military food pellets, tents, and ladders. The supervisor pointed to an area in front and said, "The outermost area is the area where ladders are made." Ouyang Shua looked in the direction he was pointing and saw a 10-meter wide road in the middle of the cave. Both sides were surrounded by wooden walls. Through the 4-meter-high walls, one could see ladders erected high up. "How is the ladder construction efficiency?" Ouyang Shua asked. Reporting to Marquis, according to the current production speed, 1 ladder can be made every day. Ouyang Shua nodded. After passing through the ladder area was the tents area. It could produce 20 tents every day. At the end was the military food pellet area. The materials used to make military food pellets were grains and some other non-staple foods and seasonings. It was extremely troublesome to make. On average, 1 military food pellet would consume 3 to 4 units of grains. The production efficiency of military food pellets was quite high. It could produce more than 1,000 pellets every day. Behind the military food pellet area was a river, and the surrounding area was the workers' living area. After the tour, Ouyang Shua left the cave under the respectful sending off of everyone. After returning, Ouyang Shua contacted Chui Shorin of the Chui Merchant Group through the super trading platform. Ouyang Shua's title of Marquis of Lian Province was conferred by the Dali Imperial Court. It obtained official recognition and was effective to all natives. Therefore, the Chui Merchant Group's attitude towards Ouyang Shua had undergone a huge change. After all, the Chui clan was only a merchant family. Their social status wasn't high. They naturally had to maintain sufficient respect towards this Marquis, Ouyang Shua. Of course, business was business, so they had to do what they had to do. Marquis. Chui Shorin took the lead to greet Ouyang Shua. With Ouyang Shua's guidance, the Chui merchant group had stocked up a batch of grains. Just based on this, Chui Shorin didn't dare put on any airs. Ouyang Shu nodded and said, "Brother Shorin, this Marquis has a favor to ask of your merchant group." "Marquis, please speak." Merchants were most afraid of owing favors. The Chui merchant group owed Ouyang Shua a huge favor and was worried about how to repay it. Now that Ouyang Shua had taken the initiative to ask for a favor, Chui Shorin naturally couldn't ask for more. "Your merchant group has quite a lot of connections in Dali. Can you recruit a group of talents for Shanghai County?" Ouyang Shua placed the idea of recruiting talents on the Chui merchant group. Compared to the Snow Rose mercenary group that only had influence among the players, the Chui merchant group's influence among the natives was even greater. Chui Shorin was slightly surprised. "Marquis, can you tell me in detail?" "This Marquis thirsts for talent, but unfortunately, I don't have the connections. I presume there are some unsuccessful people in Dali City. They have a body full of talent but have no place to utilize it. They are either down-and-out scholars, officials that have been pushed aside, generals that are dissatisfied, or even some craftsmen and artists. All of these people are targets for Shanghai County to recruit." Ouyang Shua explained his idea. Although Shanghai County is located in a remote area, it can provide a platform for them to display their ambitions. Moreover, the salary provided by Shanghai County is absolutely not lower than royal cities. Ouyang Shua's confidence not only came from his marquis title of Lianzhou, but also from the influence of his reputation as a kingdom scholar among the natives. Especially in Dali, it was even more so. Chui Shorin suddenly understood Ouyang Shua's intentions. If it was only based on the reputation of either Marquis Lianzhou or the Chui merchant group, then this matter might be more difficult to handle. But if the two of them were combined, then it could produce a magic that was greater than two. It was extremely persuasive and was sufficient to move many people. Dali had such a huge talent pool, so even a little bit of it would be sufficient for Shanghai County to consume for a long time. Ouyang Shua's poaching was truly brilliant. Since it's the Marquis's order, the Chui family is naturally duty-bound. Chui Shorin directly agreed. Ouyang Shua nodded. "For the sake of reassuring people and to show my sincerity, this Marquis is willing to provide a settlement allowance for every talent that is willing to settle down in Shanghai County. The specific amount will be determined by your merchant group. What do you think?" According to Ouyang Shua's idea, since it was a person that was unsatisfactory, then they would presumably live in poverty. "The Marquis is thoughtful." Chui Shorin nodded in agreement. "Please rest assured, Marquis. The Chui family will definitely treat this matter as a major matter and not let Marquis down." "In that case, thank you." Ouyang Shua expressed his gratitude. "You flatter me." Chui Shorin didn't go back on his word. After the conversation with Ouyang Shua ended, he immediately requested to see the patriarch. After listening to Chui Shorin's report, the patriarch of the Chui family was silent for a long time before he said, "Marquis Lianzhou is far-sighted, and his arrangements are exquisite and original. Moreover, he has the heart to seek talent. Such breadth of mind and bearing already possess the sign of a soaring dragon. This is a great opportunity for my Chui family, and we must not miss it." "Shorin." "Yes. I allow you to utilize the strength of the Chui family and go all out to recruit talents for Marquis Lianzhou. Besides that, if the disciples of my Chui family are interested in an official career, then you can recommend them to the territory of Marquis Lianzhou. The Chui clan merchant group can consider setting up a branch in the territory of Marquis Lianzhou at a suitable time." Chui Shorin was shocked in his heart. He never imagined that the patriarch would actually attach so much importance to this matter, and it far exceeded his expectations. Chui Shorin firmly believed the judgment of the patriarch, and he said loudly, "Yes." After Chui Shorin left, the patriarch sat by himself in the central hall and muttered to himself. The Chui family's revival is just around the corner. In the end, I didn't disappoint my ancestors and didn't allow the Chui family to decline in my hands. Once the Chui clan merchant group's strength was activated, its ability was extremely terrifying. In the streets and alleys of Dali, the servants of the Chui residence came out in full force, and they brought along the Chui residence's gilded invitation cards and specially prepared gifts as they paid a visit to the impoverished scholars and officials or generals that Ouyang Shua had pointed out. Some of these people were overwhelmed by the unexpected favor, some were composed and at ease, some refused at the door, and so on and so forth. All in all, the joint efforts of Marquis Lian Zhou and the Chui clan merchant group were extremely effective. Most of them indicated that they would seriously consider it for a while before giving the Chui clan an accurate answer. As for craftsmen, there was no need for the Chui clan to make a big fuss and recruit them. The main targets of recruitment were the 3 types of skilled craftsmen, carpenters, and tailors that Ouyang Shua had specially instructed. To be continued. Chapter 240. Gaia's First Year, October 1st, Eastern Fence Sword Factions Base. Lonely Peak Cloud Platform. The originally empty cloud platform was now a cluster of courtyards, pavilions, terraces, and towers. It was a spectacular sight. On the west side of the cloud platform, there was a herb garden that covered an area of 1,000 acres. It was the herb garden, emitting bursts of unique fragrance of herbs. A stream divided the cloud platform into 2, and an arch bridge was built over the stream. Under the rainbow, it exuded a bit of Taoist charm and extraordinary momentum. In the distance, under the waterfall beside the pool, under the ancient pagoda tree, a simple wooden hut rose from the ground and blended with the surrounding pool and pagoda trees. That was the sect leader's secret chamber. The sect leader's secret chamber was the safest place to enter unless invited. In front of the cloud platform, in the center of the square paved with bluestone, 800 registered disciples, dressed in the uniform of the sect, lined up neatly. Song Jia, dressed in a sky-blue Taoist robe, stood in front of the disciples. Behind her stood Ban Xia and Chui Tianqi, 2 personal disciples, one holding a sword and the other holding a book. The sword was the green-edged sword given by Ouyang Shua, and the book was a volume of Tao scripture that Song Jia had read. Song Jia looked solemn. She chose to create sect on the operation panel, and the system prompt sounded in her ears. System prompt: congratulations to player Beautiful Dream for applying to create a sect. Automatically retrieving the conditions. Condition 1. The sect's capital must not be less than 200 gold coins. Meet the requirements. Condition 2. The founder must have at least 500 registered disciples. Meet the requirements. Condition 3. The sect's core cultivation method must be at least an emperor-level comprehensive cultivation method. 9 In Sutra meets the requirements. Condition 4. Have an independent sect base. Meet the requirements. System prompt: congratulations to player Beautiful Dream for meeting all the conditions of a create sect. You are allowed to create a sect. Please name your sect. Eastern Fence Sword Faction. Song Jia did not hesitate. In the sect leader's secret chamber, a stone tablet slowly rose from the ground. It was the automatically generated stone tablet of the sect. If the stone tablet was broken and more than 80 disciples died, it meant that the sect was destroyed. System notice: congratulations to player Beautiful Dream for successfully creating the martial arts sect Eastern Fence Sword Faction. Special reward: 5,000 reputation points. Because the Eastern Fence Sword Sect is located in Shanhai County has the title of the land of martial arts. As the system announcement rang out, Song Jia's name immediately spread throughout the world. She became an influential figure among the players of the China server. She no longer had to live under Ouyang Shua's halo, and her future was bright. Song Wen immediately congratulated her on the national channel. Good job, little sister. Ouyang Shuo was not to be outdone. Congratulations, sect leader Song. The outside world was once again in an uproar. With Ouyang Shuo's current influence, there was no doubt that his words immediately caused the players to pay more attention to the Eastern Fence, Sword Faction, and Song Jia. The attentive players also noticed that since beautiful Qi Rumeng was Song Wen's younger sister, why was the Eastern Fence Sword Faction established in Shanhai County instead of Song Wen's Heavenly Frost Town? Gossip, shocking gossip. The national channel immediately boiled over with countless speculations. Not said to have no clothes vs a dream like a dream, the relationship is revealed. Are you friends, lovers, or... They must be a couple. Don't tell me there's still a pure friendship? The commenter above is insightful. Lovers +1. No, brother Wui is mine. Wu, alas, another ignorant girl's fantasy is shattered. Come to me. The brother Wui fan group is not convinced. Beautiful Qi Rumeng, we want to duel with you, little sister. Don't forget that beautiful Qi Rumeng is the head of a sect. She has a lot of brothers. Wu, the commenter above, has fainted from crying in the toilet. Brothers nearby, go quickly. Is the Eastern Fence Sword Faction recruiting? At this time, Song Jia had already dismissed the disciples. Holding the azure sharp sword, she quickly walked to Ouyang Shuo's side and said with a murderous look, "Blockhead, tell me the truth. What the hell is the Brother Wui fan group?" Looking at the murderous beauty, Ouyang Shuo was a little happy in his heart. As a man, knowing that he was worshipped by so many little girls always made him feel good. On the surface, Ouyang Shuo still looked serious and solemn. Jia, I swear to God, I really don't know. Humph. Her man being so powerful should be something to be happy about, but why did Song Jia feel so uncomfortable? It was not easy for her to become famous, but half of the limelight was stolen by this blockhead. At this time, the Alliance channel was also very lively. Whether it was Sun Xiaoye or Song Jia, they had already been pulled to the Alliance channel by Ouyang Shuo. Sister-in-law is mighty. Siege Lion started to show off again. Ever since he saw Ouyang Shuo and Song Jia's intimate actions in the Battle of Mai, he had been teasing Ouyang Shuo. The others also sent their congratulations, and Song Jia smiled and accepted them. After establishing the Eastern Fence Sword Faction, Song Jia finally had the confidence to get along with Bai Hua, Feng Qiuhuang, and the others as equals. She no longer felt inferior. Ouyang Shuo took the opportunity to check the attributes of the title Land of Martial Arts. Land of Martial Arts. Increase the physical fitness of the territory's residents by 20. Ouyang Shuo nodded. It was just as he expected. Although it was also a land of martial arts, Ouyang Shuo estimated that the attributes of the title of Swordsman County should be a bit stronger. After all, it was the first territory to establish a sect. After establishing the sect, the affairs of the sect were very complicated. Before the sect's affairs were completely sorted out, Song Jia would spend most of her time in the sect. She would be separated from Ouyang Shuo more often than not, which made Ouyang Shuo feel somewhat melancholy. After the congratulations, Ouyang Shuo did not stay any longer and immediately went down the mountain. After going down the mountain, he did not choose to return to the headquarters. At the foot of the mountain, a squadron of Imperial Guards was waiting for him. Ouyang Shuo planned to make a trip to Yishui Town and Gushan Town. It had been almost a month since they had occupied Yishui Town and Gushan Town. As the Lord, Ouyang Shuo had not inspected them even once, which was a bit of a dereliction of duty. Yishui Town was built on the bank of Qiushui River. After the residents of Gushan Town moved over, adding on the residents of the subsidiary territories, the population of Yishui Town had already exceeded the 10,000 mark. After Ouyang Shuo arrived at Yishui Town, he officially changed the name of Yishui Town to Yishui County. As for the candidate for the county magistrate, Ouyang Shuo was not in a hurry to appoint one. For the time being, the previous county magistrate was still in charge of the day-to-day affairs of Ishui County. With the merger of Ishui Town and Gushin Town, the government personnel had also been merged together. At long last, the government structure had gradually been enriched, and there was no lack of talent. The current governor of Ishui Town was just an ordinary official from the administrative office. How could Ouyang Shu feel at ease letting him manage the affairs of a county? If it was in the past, Ouyang Shu might have pulled the seedlings to hasten their growth. But now, the Chui clan's Chamber of Commerce had sent news that the recruitment of talents was going smoothly, and it wouldn't be long before a large number of talents would be sent to Shanghai County. According to Ouyang Shua's plan, he would naturally select an official from the group of talents recruited by Dali to serve as the county magistrate of Ishui County. That included Evernight Town and Guangshui Town in the west. As the bridgehead on the eastern side of the territory, Ishui County was responsible for monitoring the players' territories in the east. Naturally, the defense of the territory could not be ignored. After the merger of the two towns, Ishui County established the City Defense Battalion in accordance with the Unified Territorial Standards. In addition to inspecting, Ouyang Shua also came to check on the training of the City Defense Battalion. He was very dissatisfied with the result. The officers and soldiers of the City Defense Battalion were all the useless soldiers and crab generals left over from the original two territories. Even the soldiers from the subsidiary territories were put together to barely form an organized battalion. As the saying goes, if the soldiers are strong, the generals are strong in a nest. In order to increase the battle strength of the City Defense Battalion, Ouyang Shua selected 10 elite soldiers from the Imperial Guard platoon he brought with him and added them to the City Defense Battalion of Ishui County to serve as platoon leaders and battalion commanders. As for the former platoon leaders and battalion commanders, they were both demoted to squad leaders by Ouyang Shua. Ouyang Shua gave the City Defense Battalion a target, requiring them to actively suppress bandits and increase their battle strength. In addition to the City Defense Battalion, the defensive facilities could not be ignored. Compared to Tianfeng County, the city wall of Ishui County was even worse. After Ouyang Shua looked at it, he immediately decided to start the construction of the city wall of Ishui County. According to Ouyang Shua's long-term plan, the future Ishui County would be designated as a second-tier city. Therefore, the city wall would be built according to the standards of a county town, with a length of 5 kilometers. After the drastic transformation of Ishui County, Ouyang Shua stayed the night in Ishui County. The next morning, under the escort of the officials of Ishui County, Ouyang Shua brought the Imperial Guards and rushed to the Gushin town, which was further away. There was a group of tribal leaders waiting for him to meet them. After eliminating the bandits from the Evil Lion Ridge, the prestige of Shanghai County among the mountain barbarian tribes rose to an unprecedented height. Especially the batch of supplies left behind by Ouyang Shua, it solved their urgent need. It was reported that after the mountain barbarians transported the supplies away, they burned down the mountain village. It could be seen that the hatred the mountain barbarians had for the bandits was unforgettable. The mountain barbarians were a race that clearly distinguished between kindness and hatred. Those who bullied them would be hated by the mountain barbarians until they died. Those who helped them would always be remembered by the mountain barbarians. In addition to the description of the tribal soldiers who joined the army in advance, and the demonstration effect of the mountain barbarian settlement in Pool Water County, the head of the Internal Affairs Division, Tian Wenjing, did not need much effort to successfully persuade 1 large tribe, 3 medium tribes, and 7 small tribes to leave the mountain. He almost wiped out all the mountain barbarian tribes in the area. These 11 mountain barbarian tribes were all settled in the Gushin town, forming a mountain barbarian autonomous town. According to Ouyang Shua's promise, other than the Bank of the Four Seas branch, all the officials in the Gushin town would be taken up by the mountain barbarians. The only thing that Shanghai County interfered with was the establishment of the Gushan Town's City Defense Battalion. To be continued. Chapter 241. P.S. This chapter is for rewards and updates. The last 2 chapters will not change. When Ouyang Shua and his group arrived at Gushan Town, it was already 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Led by the leader of the large-scale Thunder and Lightning tribe, Lei Fan, 11 tribe leaders respectfully welcomed Ouyang Shua. Lei Fan was also the candidate for the chief of the Gushan mountain town recommended by the allied tribes. Ouyang Shua had discovered that Lei Fan was extraordinary in just a short time. It was reported that Lei Fan had taken over as the leader of the Thunder and Lightning tribe at the age of 24. It had been 10 years since then, and he had a high prestige in the tribe. Not only that, but the leaders of the other tribes also respected Lei Fan. Compared to Shi Xiong, the leader of the Mystic Bird tribe, who was conservative, Lei Fan was much more open-minded and had a more unique vision. This time, it was Lei Fan who pushed for the Thunder and Lightning tribe to descend the mountain. Lei Fan had long realized that if the mountain barbarians wanted to live a better life, the best choice was to integrate with the Han people. When Tian Wenjing visited the Thunder and Lightning tribe, the two of them hit it off immediately. After a brief meeting, Ouyang Shua changed the name of Gushan Town to Gushan County, and officially appointed Lei Fan as the county magistrate of Gushan County, with the authority to appoint officials at all levels below the county magistrate. That night, Ouyang Shua met with Lei Fan alone, and the two of them had a deep conversation. Ouyang Shua promised that the headquarters would provide Gushan County with a batch of food for free. The first task of Gushan County was to build the city wall and strengthen the city defense. The second task was to reclaim the farmland in preparation for the spring plowing next year. In view of the fact that the population of Gushan County had exceeded 30,000, and there was still nearly a year before the first rice harvest next year, it was estimated that the demand for grain would exceed 10 million units. With such a huge demand for food, the headquarters naturally could not provide all of it for free. According to Ouyang Shua's suggestion, the mountain barbarians would borrow rations from the supplies reserve department. After the rice was harvested in the first season of the next year, they would supply it to the supplies reserve department. Other than that, Lei Fan's more important task was to continue to promote the mountain barbarian policy of Shanghai County and contact more mountain barbarian tribes to leave the mountains and settle in Gushan County. Shanghai County did not reject anyone. The barbarians in the south had basically been wiped out. If he wanted to contact the mountain barbarians, he had to either go deep into the forest or head north. No matter what, Lei Fan could play a more important role than the Mystic Bird tribe. As the leader of a large mountain barbarian tribe, he maintained contact with other large mountain barbarian tribes. Through the large mountain barbarian tribes, and then spread out in all directions, this was undoubtedly the most effective method. In fact, with the reorganization of the Gushan County, the Mystic Bird tribe's position in Ouyang Shua's heart had declined. Their only role was to assist in the mining of the Wolf Mountain mine. As for the other matters of the mountain barbarians, because the Mystic Bird tribe was only a medium-sized tribe, whether it was in terms of vision or connections, they were already unable to provide too much help to Tian Wenjing. As for the other small and medium-sized tribes that didn't agree to go down the mountain, Ouyang Shua had already decided to ignore them and let them fend for themselves. The next morning, Ouyang Shua left with his troops and returned to Shanghai County that night. Ouyang Shua hurried back, because tomorrow was the Mid-Autumn Festival and he couldn't be absent. First year of Gaia, October 4th, August 15th of the lunar calendar, Mid-Autumn Festival. Southwest University China Hall, Meteor Island. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. Everything was quiet. Jiang Shang sat alone on a stone in front of the courtyard. He looked at the moon and reminisced about the past. The person had already passed away, but the bright moon remained eternally unchanging. All his hard work had gone down the drain. Old master, These are the mooncakes sent by the Ho mansion. The servant held a box of exquisite mooncakes in his hands. Jiang Shang's expression changed slightly, and he regained his composure. The young servant didn't dare to be rude. He put the mooncakes aside and quietly retreated. After the servant left, Jiang Shang picked up a piece of mooncake and muttered to himself, "Still not giving up?" The moon was speechless. The people were speechless. A cool breeze blew, rippling the lake. Ho mansion, back garden. After the family banquet, Ouyang Shua invited everyone to the back garden to admire the moon. The cool autumn breeze brought the fragrance of osmanthus flowers. Binger held a bouquet of osmanthus flowers in her hands. She ran to Zissou and said crisply, "Sister Zissou, Binger wants to eat osmanthus cake." Zissou nodded and said with a smile, "All right, I'll ask Aunt Wang to make osmanthus cake for little miss tomorrow." Ouyang Shua looked at this scene with amusement. He hadn't been so relaxed in a long time. Recently, the affairs of the territory had kept him busy. The situation outside the territory was also changing. The last time military Kill Ripper probed, it ended in failure. The strange thing was that after military Kill Ripper returned, no news reached Ouyang Shua's ears. It was as if a stone had sunk into the ocean. After the probing, Di Chun and the others would definitely be more cautious. Ouyang Shua didn't believe that they would give up their plans for Shanghai County just like that. The storm in the future would only be stealthier and fiercer. Ouyang Shua gradually felt powerless when it came to the affairs of the territory. He tried his best to plan everything for Shanghai County, and at the same time, he had to carefully maintain the operations of the alliance. As the number of affiliated territories increased, Ouyang Shua needed a genius who could help him manage the overall situation. Jiang Shang, who lived in seclusion on Fallen Star Island, was undoubtedly a suitable candidate. Unfortunately, things didn't go according to his wishes. "Brother, have a mooncake." Binger took a mooncake and handed it to Ouyang Shua. "Good baby." Ouyang Shua took the mooncake and smiled. All his worries were gone like flowing water. The wind was worry-free and the people were worry-free. The moonlight was like a screen, flashing brightly. "Blockhead, I've received letters from some old classmates these days," Song Jia suddenly said. "Old classmates? How do they know your ID?" "Yes, most of them are junior high school classmates. I suspect that it was Ruan Ping who leaked it. Before emigrating, he contacted his classmates. I heard that he invited many people to settle in his territory." Ouyang Shua nodded. He immediately guessed the intention. "They want to join the Eastern Fence Sword faction?" "Yes, what do you think?" Song Jia would still ask for Ouyang Shua's opinion when it came to important matters. "You're welcome. Just remember to be careful." Ouyang Shua was indifferent. "Okay." Song Jia naturally knew what to do. After the Mid-Autumn Festival, the food crisis completely broke out. The price of food rose to 30 copper coins per unit. The lords had no choice but to tighten their belt. The large grain merchants in the capital made a lot of money. The end of October was the day of the second harvest of rice. There was no need to remind them. Everyone knew that the price of food would fall at the end of October. October was the most difficult month for the players who became lords. Many territories had been forced to the edge of a cliff. The territory's funds had long been used up, and the limited resources had been sold. There was no other way. Left with no other choice, some lords began to smuggle their precious weapons and equipment to adventurer players in order to obtain funds to buy life-saving rations. A large number of weapons and equipment entered the market. The major guilds seized the opportunity and started to buy them. Compared to the lords, adventure-type players weren't affected by the price of food. Adventure-type players weren't like lords, who had a large number of subjects to feed. Adventure-type players didn't have to worry about food. In desperation, some lords began to raise the taxes on their territories. Not only that, but they also sold the food they bought from the market at a high price to the people of their territories, causing many people to complain. In Shanghai County, the price of food was maintained at 11 copper coins per unit. The lords suffered from the high price of food because they needed to stabilize the price of food in their territories. If the price of food in their territories rose along with the market, not only would it be a huge blow to the people's morale, but it would also easily cause chaos in their territories. The farmers naturally wouldn't sell their surplus food to their territories. Instead, they would want to hoard it. Thus, the lords had no choice but to use their own money to make up for the difference in food prices. The allies of the Alliance of Mountains and Seas were also worried. In late September, Ouyang Shua injected capital into the various branches of the Bank of the Four Seas once. Mulan County and Black Lion County, which had just been promoted to county level, were still doing well. They didn't have many people and could barely manage. Heavenly Frost County, which was still a level 3 town, had just been established and had ample funds. The hardest to bear were Luo Feng County and Sun Long County. They still had to repay their loans to the Bank of the Four Seas every month. They were already short on money, and now that the price of food had increased, they were in a miserable state. Similarly, Bai'an's Stubborn Stone County was also difficult to bear. The Bank of the Four Seas didn't set up a branch in Stubborn Stone County. It was quite amazing that Bai'an had relied on his own strength to survive until now. After the Mid-Autumn Festival, Bai'an finally couldn't hold on any longer and asked Ouyang Shua for help. Ouyang Shua no longer hesitated and sold off the 60 million units of food he had hoarded. After deducting the 10% transaction tax and the losses, he obtained 161,000 gold coins in one go. In addition to Ouyang Shua's original remaining funds, he had a total of 177 million gold coins in his spatial pouch. Ouyang Shua made a prompt decision and injected 40,000 gold coins into the Bank of the Four Seas headquarters. He also injected 2,000 gold coins into the Luo Feng County branch and the other 4 branches, for a total of 50,000 gold coins. With a one-time injection of 40,000 gold coins, the Bank of the Four Seas headquarters began to show the image of a central bank. Following the Bank of the Four Seas operations, the people's mindset had gradually changed. They were used to depositing their surplus money in the bank. Not only did they maintain their value, but they also earned interest. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. According to Ing Yu, the Bank of the Four Seas had taken in 5,000 gold coins in September. According to Ouyang Shua's plan, this would be the last time he would inject funds into the various branches. From then on, the Bank of the Four Seas headquarters would be responsible for the allocation of funds in the various branches. Ouyang Shua would no longer interfere. Other than that, the Bank of the Four Seas Stubborn Stone County branch had also successfully opened for business with an initial deposit of 5,000 gold coins. With that, Ouyang Shua still had 22 million gold coins in his hand. According to Ouyang Shua's plan, 100,000 gold coins were classified as unusable funds. That was prepared for the annual auction that would be held 3 months later. Compared to the first system auction, the annual auction would be much grander. Some rare treasures would be revealed, and Ouyang Shua naturally didn't want to miss it. If he wanted to make a difference in the annual auction, he would have to prepare more funds. If it wasn't for the food crisis that had drained the other territories of their liquid funds, Ouyang Shua would have prepared even more funds in case of emergencies. To be continued. Chapter 242. On October 8, the first year of Gaia, the talents recruited by the Chui Chamber of Commerce arrived at Shanghai County. This batch of talents totaled 1,200 people. Among them, 1,000 were blacksmiths, carpenters, tailors, and other skilled talents, and 200 were scholars, low-level officials, and early retired soldiers. Ouyang Shua paid a total of 5,000 gold coins for this group of people to settle down and teleport. According to Ouyang Shua's instructions, the blacksmiths, carpenters, and tailors were all assigned to the 3 military workshops in the Eastern District. The scholars and officials were assigned to various departments in Shanhai County. Most importantly, they were assigned to Tianfeng County and the other 5 affiliated territories to strengthen the administrative structure. The soldiers were assigned to various field brigades as platoon leaders or battalion commanders. Among the talents, Ouyang Shua paid the most attention to 2. They were the civil official Cui Shaoxi and the military general Sun Chuanlin. Cui Shaoxi was Ying Yu's cousin. He was a jinshi and one of the only 2 jinshi in the Cui family. He had been working in the Ministry of Appointments. Cui Shaoxi's arrival surprised Ying Yu. She did not expect the family to be so determined. The Cui family was established in business. Because of this, they paid more attention to the education of their descendant. They hoped that they would become officials and provide political protection for the family. Cui Shaoxi was one of the most successful examples of the Cui family's education. Ouyang Shua could roughly guess the Cui family's intentions. Without hesitation, he appointed Cui Shaoxi as the magistrate of Yishui County. Name: Cui Shaoxi, Gold, Identity. County Magistrate of Yishui County. Occupation: Civil Official. Jinshi. Loyalty: 85. Commander: 35 Strength, 25 Intelligence, 50 Politics, 65 Specialty. Persuasion: increases agricultural development efficiency by 20%. Evaluation: Cui family disciple, knowledgeable, insightful, diligent. Cui Shaoxi was a gold-level talent, but he only had one specialty, which was slightly lacking. Fortunately, the specialty of persuading farmers to teach mulberry was a good match for Yishui County, which focused on agriculture. If Cui Shaoxi was the result of the Cui family's intentional arrangement, then Sun Chuanlin was a pleasant surprise. Name: Sun Chuanlin. Gold, Identity. Shanhai County resident. Occupation: Intermediate General. Loyalty: 80 Commander, 60 Strength, 65 Intelligence, 40 Politics, 25 Skills. Projectile shooting: increases the range of the bow and arrow by 5. Vigorous shooting: increases the attack power of the bow and arrow by 10. Martial arts, Yuji archery. Equipment: Wild Goose Bow. Evaluation: once served as a captain in the Imperial Army. Because he was dissatisfied with the fact that his military achievements were replaced by those of aristocratic families, he brazenly exposed the evil deeds in the army. He regained his military achievements, but was treated coldly. Disheartened, he retired early. What made Sun Chuanlin special was that he was the only general in Shanhai County who was famous for his archery. Ouyang Shua couldn't help but think back to the time when he was still a village, when he had the territory's first cavalry with crossbows. Ouyang Shua didn't hesitate and immediately appointed Sun Chuanlin as the Deputy General of the Eastern City Barracks, as well as the 1st Division's 5th Brigade Commander. At this point, Shanhai County's 1st Division was officially at full strength. There were 5 regular brigades and 1 Imperial Guard brigade, and the total number of soldiers had reached 15,000. They were responsible for guarding the 4 directions. As the Shanhai County troops were reorganized, Ouyang Shua shifted his gaze to the northernmost part of the Lianzhou Basin. After the Battle of Mai, Mulan Town was successfully promoted to a first-class county. After 1.5 months, the population of Mulan Town reached the upper limit again, and it was naturally promoted to a second-class county. Mu Guiying said that the time to seize the southern pass was ripe. Mulan Town had just formed a city guard brigade, which included 2 saber and shield battalions, 1 cavalry battalion, and 2 archer battalions. With the strength of the city guard brigade, it was still not enough to seize the southern pass, and they would probably suffer heavy casualties. Therefore, they needed Shanhai County's assistance. If Ouyang Shua sent his army, they would naturally win the battle. The problem was that sending an army would require expensive teleportation fees. For example, the teleportation fee for 5,000 troops would be 10,000 gold coins. Gu Hongliang, the head of the Military Affairs Bureau, suggested that they could directly pass through the grassland without using the teleportation array. Gu Hongliyang's proposal was also full of difficulties. Because they were going to attack a city, the infantry should be the core. The infantry marched slowly. Even if they marched quickly, it would take at least a week to cross more than 400 kilometers of grassland. In addition, if the army wanted to pass through the grassland, they would inevitably pass through the territories of the grassland tribes. The current situation in the grassland was complicated, and it was not advisable to beat the grass and alert the enemy. Ouyang Shua thought about it and could only send the most elite siege troops to assist Mulan town in seizing the southern pass. In the end, he decided to transfer 2 of Shanghai County's ace battalions, the 1st Battalion of the Imperial Guard Brigade and the 1st Battalion of the 1st Brigade of the 1st Division. In addition, there were also 5 3-bow 8-bull bed crossbows and 10 scaling ladders. As the scale of the army expanded, pre-war preparations were no longer like before, which could be completed in a short time. The Military Affairs Bureau's Hummingbird carried Ouyang Shua's military order and flew to the Western Barracks. The Western Barracks received the military order and had to assemble the troops before rushing to the headquarters. It would take 2 days just to get there. The Western Barracks was cooperating with the construction of the Heavenly Sea Road to exterminate the surrounding bandit. The seized funds were handed over to the headquarters, which was Ouyang Shua. In order to increase the enthusiasm for exterminating the bandits, Ouyang Shua stipulated that 1/10 of the seized funds would be given as a special reward to all the officers and soldiers of the bandit extermination troop. The captured captives would be sent to the Military Affairs Bureau to serve as reserve soldiers. The remaining captives would be placed in the nearby Eternal Night Town or Guangshui Town to replenish the population of these 2 towns and strive to be promoted to a county town as soon as possible. This batch of captives was also arranged to serve in the Heavenly Sea Road project. On the 11th day of the 10th month, Ouyang Shua brought 1,000 elite troops and a large number of siege weapons to Mulan town. Because the scaling ladders were still huge even after being dismantled, Ouyang Shua had to transport them back and forth several times. "Big Brother Wui, you're here." Mulan Yue was waiting for him at the teleportation array. Ouyang Shua nodded and asked, "Are you ready?" "Yes, Big Sister Mu is waiting for you in the barracks," Mulan Yue said with a smile. "Let's go." In the barracks, the Mulan town's City Guard Brigade had already assembled. Before setting off, Mu Guiying invited Ouyang Shua and the others to the barracks meeting hall for a meeting. Mu Guiying invited Ouyang Shua to sit in the seat of honor. Ouyang Shua shook his head and refused. "General Mu, for this attack on Southern Guard Pass, you will be the commander-in-chief. Shanghai County's troops will all listen to your arrangements." As he spoke, he introduced Wang Feng and Shi Hu to Mu Guiying. Mu Guiying had been paying attention to Southern Guard Pass for a long time. Her understanding of the Southern Guard Pass far surpassed Ouyang Shua's. As for how to attack Southern Guard Pass, she probably already had a well-developed battle plan. Ouyang Shua naturally wouldn't overstep his bounds and let the guest take priority. Mu Guiying was a heroine with a forthright temperament. She didn't refuse and sat in the seat of honor. She said, "Through this period of investigation, I finally have a general understanding of Southern Guard Pass. There are around 3,000 bandits occupying Southern Guard Pass, and their leader is called Lian Bai. He used to be a famous hero in Jianghu. Later, he fell into a trap and was expelled from his sect. He wandered about in the wilderness and eventually became a bandit. This person is highly skilled in martial arts. Although he is a bandit, he still has a chivalrous heart. After plotting to take over Southern Guard Pass, he restrained his subordinates from killing the innocent. The problem is that because of that incident in his early years, Lian Bai has suffered internal injuries that have yet to fully recover. In addition to his old age, he is gradually losing his strength. It seems that he won't be able to restrain his subordinates any longer." Ouyang Shua nodded. No wonder Mu Guiying was so anxious to eradicate Southern Guard Pass. So this was the reason. It could be foreseen that if Li Anbai died, the first place to suffer would be Mulan County. Li Anbai has a daughter named Li Feishue. She is 16 years old and was born to his wife after he became a bandit. Li Anbai loved this daughter dearly and taught her everything he knew in his life. This Miss Li, under her father's intentional nurturing, has never been tainted. She is slender, elegant, and pure. She has never been tainted by the habits of bandit. Because of this, Li Anbai worried that after he died, not only would his daughter be unable to establish a foothold in Southern Guard Pass, but she might even lose her chastity. Mu Guiying tirelessly explained. Ouyang Xuan never imagined that there would be such a complicated story. Because of this, Li Anbai couldn't sleep at night. It just so happened that the identity of a spy that I arranged to be stationed in Southern Guard Pass was seen through by the astute Li Anbai. This person was also fierce. He actually beat the spy at his own game and found out about the spy's background. When he learned that the spy came from Mulan County, he immediately had an idea. After learning about the details, Li Anbai was even more excited. He made a prompt decision to offer up Southern Guard Pass in order to protect his daughter's chastity. Ouyang Shua suddenly understood. No wonder Mu Guiying had such a deep understanding of Southern Guard Pass. She even knew about such a secret. What followed was confusion. Since Li Anbai was willing to offer up Southern Guard Pass, why did Mu Guiying ask for Shanghai County's assistance? With such a spy, wouldn't taking down Southern Guard Pass be a piece of cake? Did something happen in between? Ouyang Shua asked. Mu Guiying let out a long sigh. The marquis guess was correct. Something did happen. Just 2 days ago, for some unknown reason, news of Li Anbai's intention to offer up Southern Guard Pass was suddenly leaked, causing a great uproar within the pass. Although the mountain bandits respected Li Anbai as their leader, they couldn't accept him offering up Southern Guard Pass. In addition, some people with ulterior motives added fuel to the fire. According to the spy's last message, Li Anbai and his daughter have already been placed under house arrest. The person in charge of Southern Guard Pass has already changed hands. Not only that, but the mountain bandits have also threatened to attack our Mulan County as punishment. Ouyang Shua shook his head in amusement. These mountain bandits don't know the immensity of the heavens and earth. It's fine if they obediently hide within Southern Guard Pass, but once they come out, how could they be a match for Mulan County? I'm afraid this isn't true. Chapter 243. Mu Guiying nodded. I also think that it's not true. The plan was not thorough, and the consequences were already in place. In this battle, not only did they have to take down the Southern Pass, but they also had to save Li Anbai and his daughter. After all, Li Anbai already had the intention to surrender. He could be considered an ally of Mulan County. They could not just watch him die. General, what's your plan? Ouyang Shua asked. Mu Guiying was confident. She said firmly, nothing else. We'll just attack. Ouyang Shua was shocked. He looked at Mu Guiying with more admiration. Since they had already alerted the enemy, they might as well defeat them head-on. This was the right way of using troop. Mu Guiying was indeed formidable. Only by comprehending this path would one be able to grasp the essence of war. Good. Ouyang Shua stood up. We'll do as General says. Let's move out. Yes. The generals answered. The majestic army set off from the Mulan County's north gate and headed straight for the Southern Pass. At 1:00 in the afternoon, the army arrived in front of the Southern Pass. The canyon was only 50 meters wide. The army could not spread out and stretched for several li. At the front of the formation, 10 scaling ladders were assembled. Behind the scaling ladders were 5 triple-bow, 8-bull-bed crossbows that were being calibrated. The base of the scaling ladders was a wooden bed with 6 wheels. The main ladder was fixed on the chassis at a certain angle. The surroundings were protected and reinforced with cowhide. When the soldiers pushed the carts close to the city wall, it could effectively protect them from the enemy's arrows and stones. The main ladder was divided into two sections. It was a folding structure with a rotating shaft in the middle. When attacking the city, they only needed to stop the main ladder at the foot of the city and then set up a secondary ladder. This would reduce the danger and difficulty of setting up ladders in front of the enemy. In addition, since the scaling ladders would not touch the edge of the city too early, it could prevent the defenders from destroying them. Standing at the front of the formation was the 1st Battalion of the Forbidden Brigade that Ouyang Shuo had brought. Their mission was to cooperate with the two knife shield battalions of Mulan County to use the scaling ladders and the treading arrows, fired by the bed crossbows, to take down the city wall. Behind the knife shield battalion were the two archer battalions of the City Guard Brigade. They were responsible for providing suppressive fire and covering fire. Behind them was the Shanghai County Heavy Infantry Battalion. They were responsible for taking down the city gate at the critical moment using the battering ram that Mulan County had prepared. There was a wheelbarrow under the wooden block which could be pushed forward. Not only was the wooden block wrapped in 2 layers of iron sheets, but it was also welded with barbs that gleamed with a cold light. At the end of the procession was the City Guard Brigade Cavalry Battalion that acted as reserve. The vast army paid no attention to the bandits at Southern Town Pass. They methodically made their final preparations before the war. Such a huge commotion had naturally alarmed the bandit. The bandit chief, who had just succeeded in usurping the throne, received the report and led a group of people to the city walls. Looking at the army that stretched for several li, the bandit chief couldn't help but be dumbfounded. He muttered to himself, "Who can tell me where the fuck this army came from?" The bandits on the left and right kept quiet out of fear, looking at each other in silence. Boss, could it be that it was the old bandit master who contacted us?" A mountain bandit said, trembling with fear. Although Li Anbai was under house arrest, he still enjoyed great prestige among the bandit. His subordinates still referred to him as the bandit master. The bandit chief was startled and cursed. "That's most likely the case. That old fart, even at death's door, he still wants to trick me. I'm going to kill him right now." The bandits on the left and right immediately stopped him, advising, "Boss, the most important thing right now is how to defend against the enemy. An old man who's about to die can be ended at any time." The bandit chief naturally wasn't a fool since he had succeeded in usurping the throne. He knew that killing Li Anbai at this time would not only be of no benefit to the war, but it would also cause some of Li Anbai's old subordinates to fall out with him. The gains wouldn't make up for the losses. The bandit chief was so agitated because of the sudden change in events. It hadn't been easy for him to sit on the throne, but he hadn't even had the time to enjoy it when he encountered such a trivial matter. After calming down, the bandit chief began to issue missions, deploy defenses, and gather all the bandits to the city walls to defend against the enemy. Since ancient times, the Southern Guard Pass not only had thick walls, but it also had an abundant supply of defensive resources. There was no lack of stones or logs. This was also the source of the bandit chief's confidence. After the bandits dispersed, the bandit chief called over one of his trusted subordinates and whispered, "Scar, hurry down the walls and find 20 some reliable brothers. Prepare horses and rations, then go to the warehouse and take out gold, silver, and jewels. Rush to the back gate and be on standby. As soon as something goes wrong, we'll immediately retreat." Scar was startled. He asked in a low voice, "Big brother, if we defend the pass, will we be unable to defend it?" The bandit chief glared at him and snapped, "What do you know? I took a cursory glance just now. The enemy actually has scaling ladders and ballistae. It's clear that they came prepared. Whether we can defend it or not is still unknown. At this time, we naturally have to prepare a path of retreat. It's better to be prepared." Scar's heart trembled. "Big brother, I understand. Go!" The bandit chief waved his hand. After Scar left, the bandit chief regained his composure and stood on the walls. As the bandit chief was preparing a path of retreat, a small incident occurred in the courtyard where Li Anbai and his daughter were being held. A young bandit stealthily rushed to the courtyard with a food box in his hand. Two of the bandit chief's trusted subordinates were standing guard outside the courtyard. When they saw the young bandit, they immediately shouted, "What are you doing? Don't you know that this is a forbidden area?" The young bandit looked left and right. When he saw that there was no one around, he quietly walked to the guard's side and whispered, "Brother, did you hear? The lord that the old stronghold master contacted is leading troops to attack the southern guard pass." The guard was a bit impatient. "Who doesn't know that? There's no need for you to tell me. Tell me the truth, just what are you doing here?" The young bandit wasn't angry. He continued to speak in a low voice, "Hey brother, you don't know how angry the boss is. He wanted to personally come and kill the old master, but unfortunately, he was stopped by his brothers. The boss couldn't refuse his brothers, so he reluctantly agreed to let the old master go. In reality, he was still indignant. Thus, the boss secretly arranged for me to send the father and daughter on their way." The young bandit pointed at the food container in his hand. Without saying anything, he made a throat-slitting gesture. The guard's heart trembled. With their understanding of the bandit chief, this sort of thing was truly possible. He immediately believed most of the young bandit's words. He nodded and said, "Since that's the case, I'll accompany you in." "No, you absolutely cannot." The young bandit immediately shook his head and said in a low voice, "Think about it. This matter is so secretive, how can we make a big fuss about it? You two brothers should guard the door as usual so that no one will suspect anything. Otherwise, if this matter is exposed and the boss blames us, we won't be able to bear the consequences." Thinking of the boss's actions, the two guards felt a chill in their hearts. They gratefully said, "Brother, you are truly thoughtful. Quickly go in." Under the grateful gaze of the guards, the young bandit walked into the courtyard. This courtyard had originally been Li Feishue's residence. Both father and daughter had been placed under house arrest here. Li Anbai's illness was already beyond cure. It was difficult for him to even get out of bed. Li Feishue had been attending to him the entire time, her face haggard. "Who is it?" The young bandit was discovered by Li Feishue as soon as he entered. The young girl reacted quickly. She grabbed the sword at the side and held it in front of her. When the young bandit entered the room and saw this scene, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. He lowered his voice and said, "Miss, there's no need to panic. I'm a spy from Mulan County. I've brought important information." Li Feishue was bewildered. Her father had already told her about Mulan County. She also knew that there were spies from Mulan County hidden in the Southern Guard Pass. However, she wasn't sure if the person in front of her was trustworthy. The young bandit saw through Li Feishue's doubts. He took out a token and handed it to Li Feishue. "This is my identity token. Miss, feel free to inspect it." Li Feishue took the token. It was very ordinary and didn't have any markings. There were only 3 crooked horizontal lines in one corner. Li Feishue calmed down and heaved a sigh of relief. She knew that the other party was indeed a spy from Mulan County. Did something happen outside? Li Feishue thought of the other party's intentions. The young bandit didn't dare to delay and said, "That's right. My lord and the Marquis of Lian Province have sent an army to attack the Southern Guard Pass. The army is outside the pass." Li Feishue was overjoyed. She muttered to herself, "That's great. Father finally doesn't have to suffer anymore." The young bandit shook his head. He wasn't as naive as the other party. He said in a deep voice, "Miss, you don't know. The old master just escaped a calamity. The usurper was furious and wanted to attack the old master, but he was stopped and couldn't do anything. I'm worried that if the situation isn't favorable, the other party will use you and your father to make a fuss." "Then what should we do?" Li Feishue was still young and didn't know what to do. Cough, cough, cough. At this moment, the unconscious Lianbai woke up. "Father, you're awake." Li Feishue was overjoyed. She threw herself at the bed and was about to cry. The ambitious and ruthless man opened his turbid eyes and looked at his daughter lovingly. He wanted to reach out but couldn't. Lianbai strenuously turned his gaze to the young bandit and said with great effort, "I heard your conversation just now. I'm ashamed that I couldn't fulfill my promise. Your lord was benevolent and immediately sent troops to save us father and daughter. I can't thank you enough. The old master is too kind." The young bandit didn't dare to be negligent. He immediately asked, "Does the old master have a good plan for how to escape?" The young bandit was so nervous because he was worried that the bandits would use the father and daughter as hostages to threaten his lord. Given his lord's personality, it was possible that he would be soft-hearted. Thus, as a qualified spy, he would take the risk to meet the father and daughter. He had to eliminate any hidden dangers before they could sprout. To be continued. Chapter 244. A glint flashed in Lianbai's cloudy eyes, as if he could see through the young bandit's heart with a glance. He said in a hoarse voice, "Young hero, you don't have to worry. This old man has lived in the Southern Guard Pass for nearly 10 years, so I know every grass and tree here like the back of my hand. There's a secret room in the courtyard where my daughter lived. It's enough to hide for a few days." The young bandit's heart trembled. He felt that his thoughts had been clearly seen through by the old man in front of him. Suppressing his discomfort, he forced a smile and said, "That's great. Old bandit master and miss, please move to the secret room." Lianbai's eyes flashed and he said, "Young hero, there's something I have to remind you of. Please speak." The young bandit didn't dare to be negligent. This old man has some understanding of the bandit's temperament. This person is scheming and cautious. He's known as a cunning rabbit. This time, he seized the opportunity to seize power. This old man is almost certain that the bandit will definitely prepare a path of retreat. The South Guard Pass is located in the canyon and can escape from the north and south. Once the situation goes awry, the bandit might abandon the pass and escape from the north. Otherwise, the person who understood you the most would often be your enemy. The young bandit's face paled. If the bandit leader abandoned the pass and he didn't notice, it would be a major dereliction of duty. "Thank you for the reminder, old bandit." Lianbai blinked his eyes in response. He had his own selfish reasons for reminding the other party. If the bandit escaped, it would be a scourge to his daughter. After explaining everything, Lianbai was seen fumbling at the head of the bed with great effort. With a kacha sound, the wall next to him suddenly opened, revealing a secret room. The secret room was only 4 or 5 square meters, with a bed and a chair. Apart from that, there was nothing else. Time was tight, so the young bandit didn't dare to delay. He and Li Feishue moved Lianbai to the bed in the secret room and brought in some rations. Li Feishue followed them into the secret room under her father's signal. Not long after, the secret room closed once more. Nothing unusual could be seen from the outside. The young bandit was still worried, so he made some arrangements for the beds outside before carrying the empty food box out of the small courtyard. Before leaving, the young bandit reminded the guard once again that he was not allowed to enter and check, nor was he allowed to leave his post without permission in order to avoid arousing suspicion. The guard gratefully agreed. The young bandit had a lot on his mind as he thought about how to stop the other party from escaping. Outside Southern Guard Pass, the battle had already begun. The first to show their might were the 5 ballistae and the archer battalion. The dense rain of arrows drew arcs in the sky and covered the top of the city walls. The arrows fired by the ballistae were rapid and fast. Like a machine gun, the arrows were like bullets leaving a barrel, pouring out in a concentrated torrent, taking away the lives of bandits one after another. As long as the bandits dared to show themselves, they would be met with a fatal blow. "Cover! Cover us!" The bandit leader hid under a shield and shouted. Upon receiving the order, the bandit archers didn't dare to disobey. Trembling with fear, they walked out of the cover of their shields. Without even aiming, they directly shot. The arrows rained down from above like the blades of the Grim Reaper, descending at high speed. "Raise your shields," the commander shouted. With a schwa sound, one shield after another was erected. From above, it looked like the ground was covered with a layer of shields. The arrows hit the shields, producing ear-piercing pop sounds. Some unlucky ones didn't hold their shields firmly and were hit by the arrows, causing them to slide to the side, revealing an opening. The arrows that followed mercilessly pierced into the bodies of the soldiers, reaping a life. While both sides were attacking each other, 10 scaling ladders were slowly pushed to the edge of the city walls. Hiding inside the scaling ladders were the 1st Battalion of the Forbidden Brigade. At the same time, the ballistae changed their target and began to fire treading arrows at the city walls. Giant arrows shot through the gaps in the city walls, forming a dense forest of arrows. The treading arrows were the starting gun. The saber and shield soldiers at the back began to move toward the city walls against the rain of arrows. The scaling ladders stopped beside the city walls. With a "paw" sound, the folding auxiliary ladder was set up, and the hooks at the top of the ladder were firmly hooked to the edge of the city walls. The soldiers of the Forbidden Brigade walked out from the inside of the scaling ladders and began to climb up along the ladder. In order to increase their speed, the soldiers put tang sabers in their mouths and used their hands to climb. "Boss, the scaling ladders are up." The bandits panicked. "I'm not blind, I can see." The bandit leader roared in exasperation. "Charge up, push the scaling ladders away, and drop them to their deaths." The hooks of the scaling ladders were specially designed, and it was difficult to push them away without the proper method. The bandits who had risked their lives to rush out had not gone through city defense training at all. Looking at the death gods climbing up from below, they were all frightened. "Smash them with stones." The bandit leader realized his mistake and hurriedly adjusted his strategy. Yes. In order to survive, the bandits lifted the stones and threw them down. Unfortunately, it was too late. The soldiers of the Forbidden Brigade had almost climbed to the top of the city walls. The stones that fell down smashed the soldiers at the front off the scaling ladders, and it was unknown whether they were dead or alive. The soldiers who caught up took the opportunity to quickly climb to the top. The soldiers held the tang sabers in their hands and stood on the scaling ladders, fighting with the bandits. The soldiers of the Forbidden Brigade were all soldiers who had gone through hundreds of battles, and the 1st Battalion was the elite of the elite. Every one of them was a 10th-grade elite soldier, and their lethality was extremely astonishing. 10 scaling ladders, 10 flowers blossomed on all sides. The group led by Wang Feng was the first to climb the city walls. Wang Feng shook his spear and said coldly, "Wang Feng is here. Whoever is not afraid of death, come forward. Kill him." The bandit leader still did not personally go into battle. Kill. There were still villains among the bandit. They were not afraid of anything else, but they were afraid of being called coward. Wang Feng's words and actions had undoubtedly provoked them. Wang Feng was not afraid at all. With a sweep of his spear, a large empty space appeared in front of him. In the Battle of the Evil Lion Ridge, Wang Feng had a breakthrough in battle, and his battle strength had become even more terrifying. His spear swept and stabbed, taking away the lives of bandits one after another. For a moment, no one could get close to him. Wang Feng was like a death god, firmly guarding the scaling ladders, not allowing the bandits to get close. Taking this opportunity, the soldiers of the Forbidden Brigade quickly followed and nimbly climbed up the city walls. Seeing their commander show his might, this group of battle maniacs brandished their tang sabers, disregarding the fact that they had the advantage in numbers, and directly charged into the group of bandits, fighting with them. The strength of the Forbidden Brigade caused the bandits to tremble in fear. If one path was broken, another path would be broken. The soldiers on the other scaling ladders also climbed up the city walls and fought with the bandit. Seeing that they were about to lose the defense, the bandit leader made up his mind and mobilized the bandits responsible for throwing stones to surround this group of lunatics. Unbeknownst to them, the saber and shield soldiers who were already waiting by the city walls were waiting for this opportunity. Under the leadership of their captain, they quickly climbed up the city walls using scaling ladders or climbing the treading arrows to support their allies. For a moment, the top of Southern Town Pass was filled with the sounds of killing, and blood flowed like a river. Seeing that the saber and shield soldiers had climbed up the city walls, Mu Guiying, who was in charge of commanding, decisively ordered the Shanghai County Heavy Infantry Battalion to start attacking the city gates. Hu received the order and did not dare to delay. He roared, "Brothers, charge! Charge!" The barbarian soldiers raised their shields and piled up wooden blocks as they aggressively charged toward the city gates. Boom! The barbarian soldiers collided with the city gates, producing a deafening sound that shook the entire pass. "Hey!" The soldiers shouted as they pulled back the wooden blocks and repeatedly attacked the city gates. Although the wooden city gates were wrapped in iron, they creaked under the continuous attacks of the monsters. It looked like they were about to collapse. The barbarians were known for their great strength. The impact of the wooden blocks they pushed was more than 10,000 jin. Bang! The first city gate was finally broken. The main city gate of Southern Town Pass had 3 city gates. After the outermost city gate was broken through, there was another city gate in the middle. Fortunately, at this time, the soldiers had the door to cover them, so they could attack without worry. "Hey! Hey! Hey!" A series of cries could be heard coming from inside the cave, followed by a series of earth-shattering rumbles, which made one's heart tremble with fear. On top of the city walls, the bandit leader heard the rumbles coming from below, and his heart tightened. Looking over, a large number of enemy soldiers had already rushed up the city walls. Although their numbers were only half of the bandits, they were not at a disadvantage. On the other hand, the bandits were scared out of their wits and were about to collapse. Sigh. The bandit leader sighed unwillingly and signaled his trusted subordinates to secretly retreat. At this time, the second city gate had been broken through. At this time, Hu had 2 choices in front of him. The first was to climb up the city walls through the passageway and assist the attacking troop. The second was to continue to break through the third city gate and cut off the enemy's retreat. Hu thought for a moment and already had an idea. He first sent someone to report the situation inside the door to the command center. Then, he left behind a platoon to continue to break through the last city gate. He led the remaining troops up the stairs to the top of the city walls to assist his brothers in the Imperial Guard Brigade. After receiving Hu's report, Mu Guiying frowned, not knowing what to choose. At this time, a signal flare rose from within Southern Town Pass. Mu Guiying was shocked. She knew that it was a signal flare from the spies in the pass, indicating that the situation was urgent. She did not hesitate anymore. Other than leaving behind a platoon of cavalry as a precaution, she sent out the remaining 4 platoons to pass through the door and cut off the enemy's retreat. Ouyang Shua and Mu Lanyue stood at the side and did not say a word, allowing Mu Guiying to command them. The cavalry originally thought that this battle had nothing to do with them. After receiving the order, all of them were fired up. Without another word, they charged out of their positions and went straight for the city gate. At this time, the city walls were already in chaos. The mountain bandit archers could no longer shoot arrows outside with peace of mind and were drawn into the chaotic battle. Thus, the cavalry smoothly rushed to the city gates. In just this one round, the third city gate had been broken through. The cavalry gave the mountain barbarian warriors a thumbs up and led his subordinates through the city gates, going around to the north of Southern Town Pass to intercept the enemy. To be continued. Chapter 245. On the walls of the Southern Guard Pass, sure whose reinforcements had completely reversed the situation. Now that Wang Feng was free, he looked around and noticed that the bandit leader who had given the order had already disappeared. He shouted, "Your leader has already escaped, hurry up and surrender." The will of the bandits to resist was much weaker than that of the regular army. The casualties hadn't even exceeded 1/10, but they were already on the verge of collapse. Wang Feng's shout was the last straw that broke the camel's back. When the bandits turned around and saw that their leader had indeed slipped away, they couldn't help but cry out. Some of the more cowardly ones surrendered like gangsters. Some of the evildoers ran for their lives. "Chase!" Wang Feng ordered. Yes. The soldiers received the order and chased in all directions. Immediately, the southern guard pass was in chaos. Wang Feng's actions were truly Ouyang Shua's teachings. In the midst of the chaos, the bandit leader brought more than 20 of his trusted subordinates and tried to escape with the money. Before leaving, he didn't change his lustful mind and wanted to take the little beauty Li Feishua with him. The bandit leader came to the courtyard and saw that the guards were still there, so he was about to enter. The guards were baffled. Hadn't the old leader already ordered to be killed? What was he doing here? The bandit leader walked into the courtyard and found that there wasn't even a shadow. He couldn't help but become angry and yelled at the guards outside, "Where are they? Where did they go?" Only then did the guard realize that something was wrong. He hurriedly ran into the small courtyard and stammered, "Boss, not long ago, there was a man who said that he came to kill the old stronghold master with poison under your orders. He didn't allow us to come in." The bandit leader immediately realized that he had fallen into a trap. He angrily kicked the guard and cursed, "Trash!" Time was of the essence and the bandit leader had no other choice. He glared at the courtyard and hurriedly fled. Compared to beauties, his life was more important. Unfortunately, the heavens didn't grant his wish. The bandit leader's group hadn't run far before the cavalry battalion caught up. The eyes of the battalion commander lit up, knowing that he had caught a big fish. He yelled, "Capture them!" Yes. The soldiers on horseback surrounded the bandit leader's group with a murderous aura. When the bandit leader saw this, he sighed helplessly and allowed himself to be captured. At 3:30 in the afternoon, the southern guard pass regained its peace. Ouyang Shua didn't interfere with matters such as sealing the treasury, taking inventory of the resources, and taking in the captives. Mu Lanyue and Mu Guiying were completely in charge. He had already stated that Shanhai County would only be assisting and would not participate in the distribution of the spoils of war. Ouyang Shua didn't even plan to take back the scaling ladders and the ballistae. He gave them all to Mu Lanyue. 5 ballistae would be placed at the southern guard pass to strengthen its defenses. According to Mu Guiying's plan, the southern pass would station a battalion of soldiers. Although there weren't many of them, given Mulan County's size, it was already quite a feat according to Ouyang Shua's request. The troops of Shanhai County had withdrawn from the southern town pass and assembled outside the pass. The 1st Battalion of the Praetorian Guard Brigade had lost 75 men in this battle, mainly due to being hit by stones during the siege of the city. The 1st Battalion of the Praetorian Guard Brigade had only lost 5 men because they did not participate in the intense battle. Ouyang Shua ordered the corpses of the fallen soldiers to be brought back to the Shanhai County Cemetery for burial. "Big Brother Wui, let's enter the pass together." Mu Lanyue ran over with a smile. Ouyang Shua was startled. He didn't plan to enter the pass and was preparing to return to Shanhai County immediately. He said, "Yu, is there something wrong?" Although Mu Lanyue was still a little girl, after half a year of training as a lord, her mind was already extremely mature. She wouldn't call Ouyang Shua for no reason. "Big Brother Wui, come with me." The black-bellied girl didn't explain. She directly pulled Ouyang Shua's clothes and walked into the pass. Ouyang Shua smiled bitterly and followed behind her. Southern Town Pass, Meeting Hall. There were more than a dozen boxes placed in the hall. Lianbai and his daughter were also present. However, Lianbai's complexion didn't look too good. He looked like he could die at any moment. Li Feishui accompanied him, silently crying. Mu Lanyue pulled Ouyang Shua and invited him to sit with her at the head of the meeting hall. Mu Guiying sat below and cupped her fist. Reporting to my lord, we captured a total of 2,140 people in this battle. We also seized a large amount of rations, supplies, and weapons. The most important reward is the 12 boxes of gold, silver, and jewelry in the hall. This general has calculated that there are a total of 2 boxes of gold, 8 boxes of silver, and 2 boxes of jewelry. The warehouses of the southern town pass were extremely rich in supplies. There were basic supplies such as rations, fodder, oil, wood, and other defensive supplies. There were also bows, swords, armor, and other military supplies. In addition, there were all kinds of gold, silver, and jewelry. Some of these treasures were already in the southern town pass, some were brought over from the stronghold by Lianbai, and some were looted by the bandits from passing merchants. Mu Lanyue had pulled Ouyang Shua over mainly to discuss how to distribute these 12 boxes of treasures. She was well aware that the Shanghai County's elite troops had contributed greatly to the successful capture of the southern town pass. Although Ouyang Shua had already stated that he would give up on distributing the spoils of war, Mu Lanyue still couldn't do something like keeping the spoils for herself. On this matter, Mu Guiying was also extremely supportive. Ouyang Shua also didn't expect that the treasures in the southern town pass would be even more than the evil Lion Ridge's bandit stronghold. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't tempted at all. However, in Ouyang Shua's eyes, these funds were just icing on the cake. But for the rapidly developing Mulan County, it was like sending charcoal in snowy weather. Big Brother Wui, the gold and jewelry are all yours. How about it? Although Mu Lanyue's distribution plan seemed exaggerated, it was actually fair. The value of the captives and the various supplies was no less than 2 boxes of gold, especially the various weapons and equipment. Ouyang Shua shook his head firmly. He looked at Mu Lanyue dotingly and said resolutely, There's no need to do this. How about this? I'll take 1 box of gold and leave the rest to you. Seeing that Mu Lanyue was about to say something, Ouyang Shua raised his hand to stop her. It's settled. All right, thank you, Big Brother Wui. Mu Lanyue's eyes turned and she agreed with a smile. After the distribution was done, Ouyang Shua got up and was about to leave. Cough, cough, Lianbai suddenly coughed to remind them of his existence. Old Bandit Master, is there anything else? Mu Guiying asked. Lianbai nodded with great effort and said in a hoarse voice, This old man doesn't have long to live. The only thing I'm worried about is my daughter. I hope that General and Sirs can fulfill my wish. Mu Guiying turned to look at Mu Lanyue, indicating that she would make the decision. Mu Lanyue said in a crisp voice, What's so difficult about that? Little sister Feishui is so innocent and cute. In the future, she won't suffer in Mulan County. Old Bandit Master, please don't worry. Ouyang Shua laughed and shook his head. He didn't think that Mu Lanyue would be like him, having a hobby of taking in little sisters. If that's the case, this old man thanks you. Hearing Mu Lanyue's promise, Lianbai finally relaxed. After everything was settled, Ouyang Shua bid farewell and left. Before leaving, Mu Lanyue suddenly stuffed a token into Ouyang Shua's hand. What is this? Ouyang Shua asked. Mu Lanyue smiled mysteriously. This was obtained by Big Sister Mu when she searched the secret room of the southern town pass. Take a look. Ouyang Shua looked at the token's attributes and was so shocked that his jaw almost dropped. Fusion token 3/3 after using. The village creation token of a territory can be fused with an existing town. There is no need to start from scratch. Without a doubt, the fusion token solved one of Ouyang Shua's biggest problems. He could completely separate the village creation tokens from North Sea County, Pool Water County, or Friendship County and use the fusion token U to fuse them with Tianfeng County and the other territories, restoring the growth potential of those territories. Yu, do you know the value of this token? Ouyang Shua's tone was serious. If such a heaven-defying token were to be placed on the super auction platform, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Mu Lanyue didn't have any self-awareness. She giggled and said, I know. However, I believe that Big Brother Wui needs this token more than I do. Only you can maximize the value of this token. The news of Ouyang Shua conquering the 5 territories was known to all members of the Mountain and Sea Alliance, and Mu Lanyue was no exception. Ouyang Shua nodded. He suddenly reached out and patted the little girl's head. He smiled and said, All right, I'll accept the token. He didn't mention anything about repaying her and just accepted it. The relationship between the two of them suddenly became close. All the barriers between them had been removed, and they were like real siblings. Mu Lanyue smiled brightly like a summer flower, warming people's hearts. After returning to Shanghai County, Ouyang Shua dismissed the troops and went back to his office alone. The fusion token could be used 3 times, which meant that he needed 3 village creation tokens. How to use them and which 3 tokens to use would affect Ouyang Shua's overall planning for his future territories. Ouyang Shua first thought of North Sea County. As a port city, it was not suitable to split its attention. Moreover, North Sea County was surrounded by a long and narrow coastline, so it was not suitable to develop other subsidiary territories. Therefore, North Sea County's 3 black iron village creation tokens could be completely freed up. Secondly, there was the problem of which subsidiary territory to fuse. Among the 5 subsidiary territories, Gushan County, as the Mountain Barbarian Autonomous County, could be excluded. It was not suitable to use the fusion token. Gushan County's target of attracting people was the Mountain Barbarian tribes in the forest. In the future, its population growth rate would not be lower than the other subsidiary territories, so there was no need for new refugees. As for the remaining 4 subsidiary territories, Tianfeng County definitely needed to use 1 token. The key question was whether or not Yishui County, Eternal Night Town, and Guangshui Town needed to use a precious village creation token. Ouyang Shua didn't plan to use up 3 chances at once. He wanted to leave at least 1 token for the future Duanren County. Just because he didn't touch Ba Dao's Broken Blade Town now didn't mean that he wouldn't touch it in the future. As Ouyang Shua's eastern central city, he naturally couldn't ignore its potential for growth. In the end, Ouyang Shua decided to only fuse Tianfeng County and Yishui County for now. To be continued. Chapter 246. P.S. 500 monthly votes and updates, thank you for your support. On the 12th day of the 10th month of the first year of Gaia, Ouyang Shua arrived at Beihai County with his personal guards. It had been more than half a year since Beihai County was established, but this was Ouyang Shua's first time here. The boat meandered along the canyon. Looking up, the cliff walls on both sides were steep. Apart from moss, there was nothing else. It was deathly silent and oppressive. Above the cliff, a skyline could be seen. The blue sky was faintly discernible. The rapid river slammed against the rock walls, making splashing sounds and splashing water. Suddenly, there was a sharp turn, and a skyline suddenly appeared in front of them. The boat passed through the skyline, and the view suddenly opened up. The sun was bright and the sky was high and wide. The coastline in the distance was clearly visible, and the sound of crashing waves could be heard. A pair of seabirds flew across the sky, bringing with them a sense of vitality. Narrow and wide, life and death, but it was so abrupt and harmonious. Ouyang Shua couldn't help but sigh at the power of nature and its supernatural workmanship. Beside the river, beside the sea, a majestic city stood between heaven and earth, suppressing all directions. Beihai County Magistrate Gu Xiuwen and Beihai Fleet Commander Pei Donglai were waiting at the pier with a group of civil and military officials to welcome Ouyang Shu. The boat slowly came to a stop, and Ouyang Shuo disembarked with his personal guards. "Greetings, Marquis." The group of officials bowed. Ouyang Shu nodded and said, "All of you are my loyal subjects. Beihai County has grown to such a scale thanks to all of you. This Marquis didn't come here to show off his merit. Disperse." Yes. The officials didn't dare to be negligent and left, leaving only Gu Xiuwen and Pei Donglai behind. Ouyang Shuo wasn't in a hurry to enter the city. He smiled and said to Gu Xiuwen and Pei Donglai, "What do you think? Accompany me for a walk." In fact, Gu Xiuwen and Pei Donglai didn't know why Ouyang Shuo was here. Last night, they received an urgent letter from his secretary, Lang Bai Nanpu, saying that the Marquis would come to Beihai County the next morning, but the details weren't mentioned. The two had no objections to Ouyang Shuo's suggestion, and said in unison, "Yes." The three walked along the river towards the sea, with the personal guards following far behind. While walking, Ouyang Shuo looked at Gu Xiuwen and asked, "Xiuwen, what's the situation in Beihai County?" Ever since capturing Tianfeng County and the other 4 territories, Ouyang Shuo had already cancelled the arrangement of the subordinate territories commanding officers coming to the headquarters every month to report on their work. Instead, it was changed to once every 6 months. Thus, Ouyang Shuo hadn't seen this capable general of his for a period of time. Gu Xiuwen was stunned. He bowed again and said, "Reporting to the Marquis." "Hey," Ouyang Shuo waved his hand. "This isn't the imperial court. Xiuwen doesn't need to be so restrained." The reason why Ouyang Shuo didn't rush to the county yamen was because he didn't want to be too formal. Gu Xiuwen nodded and began to pick out the important matters and report them to Ouyang Shuo. At the military conference last month, Ouyang Shuo proposed a major industrial development plan. After the meeting, the Secretary Office compiled Ouyang Shuo's speech into an official document and distributed it to all the subordinate territories. The commanders of the subordinate territories understood tacitly and began to think about the unique industrial planning of their territories. In this regard, Beihai County was at a disadvantage. As the saying goes, rely on the water to draw water from the water. Beihai County, apart from the fishing industry and salt industry, was almost unable to develop any other industries. Needless to say, the salt industry had reached a bottleneck due to the limited size of the beach. The fishing industry wasn't optimistic either. Not only were the fishermen afraid of encountering bad weather, but they were also afraid of encountering pirates. It wasn't safe, and they could only fish in the waters where the North Sea Fleet was patrolling. It was estimated that Beihai County would only be promoted to a third-class county in half a month. On the other hand, the Pool Water County caught up and successfully promoted to a third-class county last week. Although the migration of the mountain barbarians was a factor, Gu Xiuwen was still unconvinced. As the first subordinate territory of the Shanghai Territory, Gu Xiuwen had always regarded Beihai County as the benchmark of the subordinate territories. In order to surpass the Pool Water County, Gu Xiuwen had recently discussed with Pei Donglai to start the military operation to eliminate the pirates as soon as possible to increase the population of Beihai County. At the same time, it was also to clear the obstacles for the fishermen to go out to sea to fish. Pei Donglai had this intention long ago, and both of them hit it off immediately. Unknowingly, the Black Shark pirates retreated after running into a wall. Recently, they didn't send any scouting ships to monitor the movements of Beihai County for a long period of time. To avoid unnecessary trouble, Gu Xiuwen and Pei Donglai sent an invitation to Ouyang Shuo, hoping to approve the military operation of the North Sea Fleet as soon as possible. Ouyang Shuo laughed and shook his head when he heard that both of them were still talking about eliminating the pirates. "You guys don't have to put on a show in front of me. Due to the recent war on the mainland, the elimination of the pirates was indeed effected. As the Evil Lion Ridge and the Southern Guard Pass were taken down, the war on the mainland came to an end. I'm here today to discuss with you about the elimination of the Black Shark pirates on the Moon Island. Both of them were overjoyed. As they spoke, they arrived at the beach. The seawater was unusually clear and there was no trash on the beach. In reality, it was rare to see such a clean beach. Ouyang Shua even had the urge to jump into the sea. He was thinking that he could bring Binger to the beach to play when he had the time in the future. Xiuwen, Ouyang Shua called out. Yes. Help me do one thing. Build a wooden hut near the beach. When I have time in the future, I'll bring Binger here for a vacation. It'll be nice to have a place to stay, Ouyang Shua instructed. Although he was a lord, Ouyang Shua didn't want to be tied down by military affairs. He had to rest when he needed to and enjoy when he needed to. Yes. Gu Xiuwen solemnly replied. He had already made up his mind to build the wooden house beautifully and ensure that the Marquis and the third young miss would have a comfortable living environment. Let's go back to the government office. Ouyang Shua was ready to go back home. North Sea Government Office, Meeting Room. Ouyang Shua silently chanted the name of the stone tablet, and the white stone tablet slowly rose from the floor of the meeting room. On the front of the stone tablet, the words North Sea County shone brightly. He placed his right hand on the front of the stone tablet and silently said, Subsidiary Village. A system notification immediately sounded. System notification. North Sea County is a Tier 2 county and has 3 subsidiary village slots. Do you want to use them? Yes. System notification. North Sea County's village creation token is a silver grade token. The subsidiary village's village creation token will be lowered by 1 rank and will become an iron grade token. Do you want to separate them? Separate. 3 rays of black light shot out from the stone tablet and slowly landed on Ouyang Shua's hand, turning into 3 iron grade village creation tokens. Ouyang Shua took the opportunity to look at the properties of the village creation tokens. Name: Village Creation Token, Iron Grade. Properties: Attraction rate of refugees increased by 25, attraction rate of special talents increased by 10, production rate increased by 25, skill proficiency increased by 10, soldier level increased by 10. Evaluation: Unique item cannot be dropped, cannot be traded. A black iron grade village creation token only had half of a gold grade village creation token's properties, which was much lower in grade. Ouyang Shua didn't mind. He put the 3 village creation tokens into his storage bag. It was better than nothing. Does the Marquis want to establish a subsidiary village? Gu Xiuwen asked. Only then did Ouyang Shua remember that he hadn't explained the fusion token to Gu Xiuwen. He felt a little embarrassed. He still remembered that Gu Xiuwen had asked for permission to establish a subsidiary village in North Sea County twice, but Ouyang Shua had rejected both times. Xiuwen, there's something I need to tell you. Ouyang Shua paused for a moment, then continued. North Sea County needs to focus on developing its headquarters. That way, there's no need to establish a subsidiary village. I have other uses for these 3 village creation tokens. Gu Xiuwen's face instantly paled. He thought that Ouyang Shua was dissatisfied with North Sea County's development. Your humble servant is afraid. I have failed the Marquis's trust. Please punish me. Gu Xiuwen half knelt on the ground in fear and trepidation. Ouyang Shua shook his head. This was the bad thing about being a scholar. He had too many thoughts and liked to blindly guess things. If it was Zhao Dexian or Zhao Duong, they definitely wouldn't have done this. They would have directly asked for the reason. Stand up. Don't misunderstand. The Marquis's arrangement isn't because I'm dissatisfied with you, but because it's based on the overall planning of the territory. North Sea County is close to the sea, so it needs to be developed. This is the right way to go. Ouyang Shua had no choice but to explain. He didn't want to leave any grudges in his heart. Yes. Gu Xiuwen's face softened as he heaved a sigh of relief. Gu Xiuwen couldn't be blamed for being so nervous. Recently, seeing North Sea County being overtaken by Pool Water County, Gu Xiuwen, who had always been competitive, had a knot in his heart. He realized that even now, he was still jittery. Ouyang Shu also realized that Gu Xiuwen's mental state was a little out of balance. It was difficult for an outsider to console him. The more he consoled, the deeper the knot in his heart would become. He could only rely on himself to adjust. As the leader, Ouyang Shu naturally couldn't be biased towards any side. Whether it was Pool Water County, North Sea County, or even Friendship County, they were all meat. It would be a good thing if any of them developed well. If the competition between subsidiary villages could be controlled, it would be a good thing. Ouyang Shu wouldn't interfere. Of course, if any of the leaders of subsidiary villages were to overstep their boundaries and do something out of line, Ouyang Shu wouldn't be lenient and would definitely punish them severely. As the number of subsidiary villages increased, and the strength of the subsidiary villages continued to grow, balancing the allocation of resources and human resources between each village was a profound art. The reason why Ouyang Shu was in a hurry to build the Sky-Sea Road was to strengthen the centralization of power and strengthen the control of the base camp over the subsidiary villages. In this aspect, Ouyang Shu was still young and inexperienced. He could only take it one step at a time. In fact, Ouyang Shu lacked a teacher to teach him the way of an emperor. Fan Zhongyan and Tian Wenjing were lacking in this aspect and weren't good enough to be his teacher. To be continued. Chapter 247. After leaving the county office, Ouyang Shu was led by Pei Donglai to Beihai Harbor for a tour. Beihai Harbor was located in the southeast corner of Beihai County. It was a comprehensive harbor with half a fishing port and the other half a military port. The high-grade shipyard that had been moved here was built in this harbor. After entering the station, Ouyang Shu asked Pei Donglai to invite Elder Sun and Director Zheng Dahai to discuss the development of the Beihai fleet. In the meeting hall of the station, Ouyang Shu sat on the seat of honor and looked around. A long time ago, this marquis decided to develop the navy and dominate the sea. It has been more than half a year since then. During this time, the territory has built a high-grade shipyard and Beihai Harbor. The Beihai fleet also has its main warship, the Mengchong fighting ship. But in reality? Why do we have so many misgivings just to attack a small island and capture a group of pirates? Ouyang Shu's question was very sharp, and the atmosphere became somewhat stagnant. General Pei, you're the commander of the navy. Tell me. Ouyang Shu began to call out names. Pei Donglai knew that he had to say something. He slowly got up and bowed to Ouyang Shu. Reporting to the Marquis, if you want to analyze the reason, I can naturally come up with a lot of excuses. For example, the lack of soldiers, the lack of combat experience, and the lack of familiarity with the surrounding waters. However, these aren't the main reasons. All the officers and soldiers of the Beihai fleet can overcome them. The most important problem is that the territory's warships are too few and can't organize a large-scale naval battle. Pei Donglai's point of view made Ouyang Shu's eyes light up. Continue. As a former naval commander in the Imperial Army, Pei Donglai had rich experience in naval battles and was well aware of the Beihai fleet's problems. Pei Donglai sorted out his thoughts and continued, to build a well-organized naval fleet, we need at least 3 types of warships. First, the command ship, the fortress ship. It's the main warship and also the main logistical warship to support the fleet's long-range voyages. Second, the mid-sized warship, the Mengchong fighting ship, is an attack-type warship. As a warship whose defensive capability is second only to the fortress ship, the Mengchong fighting ship's weakness is that it can't conduct long-range naval battles alone because it can only carry supplies such as fresh water, rations, and arrows. Finally, there is the small battleship used for scouting and patrolling, the Scarlet Horse boat. It is small and light, and its speed is as fast as a horse, making it easy to hide. Only with a reasonable combination of the three types of warships can we maximize our combat potential. The organization of the fleet was not based on the army, but on the fleet. Apart from soldiers, the fleet also needed to be equipped with sailors. Currently, the North Sea Fleet only has one type of warship, the Mengchong battleship. If we want to cross the sea and attack Moon Island, we will have to take a huge risk. Ouyang Shuo nodded. He understood the crux of the problem. He had thought too simply. Among the three types of warships, small warships were the easiest to deal with. The key was the large warships, the fortress ships. In order to build a fortress ship, he had to overcome two obstacles. One was to obtain the fortress ship building technical manual, and the other was to build a special shipyard. The current advanced shipyards could only build medium-sized warship. Zheng Dehai had already broken through to the master shipbuilder rank, and had completely swept away the obstacles in building a special class shipyard. Ouyang Shuo only needed to spend 5,000 gold coins to purchase a special class shipyard blueprint. The key was the Tower Ship Construction Technique Manual. This kind of special item could only be found by chance. Ouyang Shuo could only place his hopes on the annual auction. In the end, distant water could not quench present thirst. Ouyang Shuo raised his head to look at Zheng Dehai and asked, "Is there anything to report about the shipyard?" Zheng Dehai immediately stood up and bowed. Reporting to the Marquis, the shipyard has stopped building Mengchong battleships except for fishing boat. Why? Because the Mengchong battleships are completely full. Other than the North Sea Fleet and the West Law Lake Navy Camp, there are still 20 Mengchong battleships idling. They are almost full. Ouyang Shuo was startled. Since when did the shipyard become so efficient? It could not be underestimated. He asked, "How many shipbuilders are there in the shipyard?" A trace of pride flashed across Zheng Dehai's face. He smiled and said, reporting to the Marquis, "After half a year of nurturing, the shipyard currently has 1 master shipbuilder, 12 advanced shipbuilders, 54 intermediate shipbuilders, 228 beginner shipbuilders, and 575 apprentices. That's a total of 870 people. Such a large team was indeed not easy." "Not bad." Ouyang Shuo nodded in praise. Finally, Ouyang Shuo looked at Elder Sun and asked, "Elder Sun, is there any progress on the modification of the ancient battleships?" Elder Sun spent the rest of his time in the shipyard apart from participating in the research and development of the 7th Research Institute. Sun Xiaoye even complained to Ouyang Shuo that he was squeezing out her grandfather's remaining value. Ouyang Shuo could only smile bitterly in response. In fact, after entering the game, these old men's energy was no longer limited by their desires in reality. Each of them was full of energy and drive. Even if Ouyang Shuo wanted to stop them, he couldn't. Elder Sun's face was flushed and full of energy. He shook his head and said, "As General Pei said, there are too few types of battleships. Many of the modifications are useless. We can only modify some of the details. For the Mengchong battleships, apart from the compass, the sails have also been upgraded. At the same time, this old man plans to install iron plates on the cabin walls and an iron ram on the bow to increase the Mengchong battleship's impact and destructive power. The most important research is the watertight bulkhead technology to increase the battleship's draft. Otherwise, with so many iron parts installed, it'll be useless if the draft can't keep up." Ouyang Shuo was overjoyed. He didn't expect Elder Sun to make so many modifications in such a short time. Elder Sun is too modest. Such modifications are worth tens of thousands of gold coins, Ouyang Shuo said with a smile. Elder Sun waved his hand. "Ouyang, don't flatter this old man." Ouyang Shuo nodded and looked at everyone present, especially Pei Donglai. He said, "This Marquis will be in charge of the ship. There are too many variables in this matter. I don't think we can make it in time for the battle on Moon Island, so we can only use the Mengchong battleships to resolve the battle. This Marquis will personally participate in this battle and try to solve the fleet's logistical problems. General Pei, you must also plan carefully and strive to fight a beautiful battle of annihilation at sea. Understood. Pei Donglai answered, feeling deeply responsible. That afternoon, Ouyang Shuo returned to Shanghai County. As soon as he returned, a servant reporting to Marquis, an important guest has come to the mansion. Madam has ordered that if Marquis returns, please go to the back garden. The madam mentioned by the servant was naturally Song Jia. Ouyang Shuo was startled. Since Song Jia came to receive them, they must be classmates who came because of its reputation. Since the establishment of the Eastern Fence sword faction, many classmates had come because of its reputation. Especially after Song Jia's identity was exposed in the forum, people came to seek shelter in an endless stream. Ouyang Shuo didn't show up for most of the people who came, and Song Jia was the one who received them. Since Song Jia asked him to meet them, they must be junior high school classmates, and they must have a good relationship. Ouyang Shuo walked into the back garden and saw Zisu, asking, "What guests have come to the mansion?" Zisu bowed and said, reporting to Marquis, "I heard from Madam that they are Marquis's classmates, and they are 2 women." Ouyang Shuo nodded and waved his hand. "This Marquis understands. You can go about your business." "Understood." Zisu said goodbye and left. Ouyang Shuo passed through the back hall and came to the back garden. From afar, he heard the women talking and laughing. "Oi, here." Song Jia's eyes were sharp, and she was the first to notice Ouyang Shuo. 3 women were sitting in the garden pavilion. Besides Song Jia, there were 2 others dressed like swordsmen. Hearing Song Jia's shout, the 2 women next to her turned to look at Ouyang Shuo. "Wow, it's really Ouyang Shuo Wu." One of the slightly chubby women was bold and unrestrained. The other woman was petite and exquisite. Although she didn't say anything, the surprise in her eyes couldn't be concealed. Ouyang Shuo was originally a little uncertain, but now he completely recognized the identity of the 2 women. As he walked, he smiled and said, "I was wondering who it was. So it's you 2 beauties. Welcome." Yes, they were Tan Xiaoli and Meng Feifei, who were acquainted with Ouyang Shuo at the class reunion. The 2 women obviously hadn't recovered from their shock, and they didn't dare to believe it. Ouyang Shuo shook his head helplessly and sat down next to Song Jia. Song Jia obediently poured a cup of tea for him and asked, "Wui, did your trip go smoothly?" Song Jia knew that Ouyang Shuo went to Beihai County in the morning for an inspection. Ouyang Shuo nodded and didn't want to talk about it. He looked up at Tan Xiaoli and Meng Feifei, who were staring at him, and said self-mockingly, "What? Am I a monster? Why are you looking at me like that? Aren't you a monster?" Song Jia teased. Tan Xiaoli and Meng Feifei nodded in unison, expressing their agreement. "Old classmate, I really didn't expect to meet you here." Ouyang Shuo also felt a little emotional. Tan Xiaoli and Meng Feifei were the ones who were emotional. Before coming to Shanghai County, they didn't know Ouyang Shuo's identity, and they only came to Song Jia to seek shelter. After they arrived, Song Jia pointed out Ouyang Shuo's identity, and they couldn't believe it for a moment. Not bad. You secretly abducted our class belle." Tan Xiaoli was more cheerful, and she was the first to come back to her senses. She said teasingly, "We were still wondering who this Wui is to be able to capture our class belle's heart. I didn't expect this person to be hiding among us." Ouyang Shuo shook his head. The friendship between classmates wasn't as simple as Tan Xiaoli made it out to be. How much of Tan Xiaoli's words were sincere, and how much of it was secretly flattering Song Jia? No one knew. Ouyang Shuo was also a layman, so he put down his thoughts and chatted with everyone. To be continued. Chapter 248. Tan Xiaoli and Meng Feifei's arrival only caused a small splash in Ouyang Shuo's life, before everything returned to normal. With Ouyang Shua's current status, he naturally didn't need to pretend to socialize with others. He acted according to his heart, and every word and action was clear, without too much scheming or hypocrisy. After the establishment of the Eastern Fence Sword faction, Song Jia was fully in charge, and Ouyang Shua didn't participate. He believed that Song Jia had the ability to deal with all kinds of bad people. The next day, Yu's cousin Chui Shoren sent Ouyang Shua a gift. It turned out that the Chui Merchant Association had made a huge profit from the food crisis, according to Ouyang Shua's judgment. The Chui Merchant Association was naturally grateful for Ouyang Shua's guidance, and was thinking of how to repay him. Directly sending gold and silver was too vulgar. They spent a lot of effort to prepare a special gift for Ouyang Shua. Ouyang Shua opened the package, and it was a book. After looking at it, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. Manual of Cultured Pearls. After use, you will automatically grasp the technique of cultured pearls. According to research, the ancient cultured pearls in China already had some scale as early as the Song dynasty. At the end of the Ming dynasty and the beginning of the Qing dynasty, the cultured pearls had matured and had a certain economic value. The raw materials used for cultured pearls were mainly chechu or normal clam shells. The process was simple, and the culturing period was shortened to within a year, or even just a few months. Ouyang Shua was thinking about how to develop Sheila Lake, and the manual of cultured pearls was the right time. If they could cultivate pearls on a large scale in Sheila Lake, it would be a high-quality industry. Ouyang Shua called Yu over, and told her about the matter of cultivating pearls. According to Ouyang Shua's intentions, cultivating pearls would be directly under the jurisdiction of the finance department, and Tianfeng County would be responsible for the implementation. Ouyang Shua then allocated 1,000 gold coins from his funds to support the pearl cultivation industry in Sheila Lake. Yu was also happy after hearing this. After the discussion, Ouyang Shua called his secretary Lang by Nanpu and gave him a black iron village creation token, manual of cultured pearls, and 1,000 gold coins. He told him to send these things to Tianfeng County through official channels, and Tianfeng County Magistrate Zhao Duong would be responsible for the arrangements. The village creation token that Ouyang Shua gave to Bai Nanpu had been activated by the fusion token, so it could be used directly. There was no need for Ouyang Shua to make a trip himself. After activating the 3 village creation tokens, the fusion token turned into a white light and disappeared. Along with these items, there was also a handwritten letter from Ouyang Shua. In the letter, Ouyang Shua explained everything. At the same time, he also told Zhao Duong that after the activation of Tianfeng County, the refugees should be arranged to work in the pearl farming industry as much as possible and strive to cultivate the pearl farming industry into the core industry of Tianfeng County. Apart from this, Ouyang Shua did not forget to send a village creation token to Yishui County to activate it. Yu's cousin, Chui Shaoxi, had already taken up his post. He believed that he would be able to make good use of this token. As for the final village creation medallion, Ouyang Shua left it in his spatial bag. After everything was settled, Ouyang Shua sent 5,000 gold coins to his aunt through the courier station and asked her to help him purchase a special shipyard blueprint. In the letter, Ouyang Shua also mentioned something else. He asked his aunt to take the lead and help him contact the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group to seek cooperation between both parties. Although the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group was not one of the top 10 guilds in the China server, it was very famous. This was because its previous incarnation was a group of international mercenaries in the real world. Right now, the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group was not very famous, and only a few people knew about their background. In his previous life, Ouyang Shua had a certain understanding of them. The cooperation that Ouyang Shua mentioned was actually to hire members of the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group as instructors to help the Shanghai County military trained scouts and special forces. For this matter, Ouyang Shua could not cooperate with the wolf warriors, who had a military background, so he could only find mercenaries. Ouyang Shua asked his aunt to act as a middleman because both of them were adventure-type guilds, so it would be easier to communicate with them. If he directly made an appearance, it would seem a little abrupt. Jianye, Snow-Fallen Rose Mercenary Group S base. When Lin Jing received Ouyang Shua's letter, she frowned and muttered to herself, "Why is this brat looking for Rattlesnake Mercenary Group? How did he know about such a mercenary group?" "Jing, what are you mumbling about?" Xie Xiyun asked. Lin Jing raised her head and said awkwardly, "Xiyun, do you have any contact with Rattlesnake Mercenary Group?" "Rattlesnake?" Xie Xiyun frowned. "As far as I know, their base is in Jianye. I've met their leader, the Black Mamba Snake, once before. That was during a guild leaders gathering of the guild leaders. I heard that this mercenary group is very low-key. Why are you asking about this?" "Shua wants us to act as a middleman to contact the Black Mamba Snake. He seems to have some business to cooperate with Rattlesnake, but he didn't say the specifics," Lin Jing explained. "Cooperation?" Xie Xiyun lowered her head and carefully recalled. Slowly, she said, "From the clues, the members of Rattlesnake should be a fixed group in real life. They don't recruit from the outside, and the number of members is around 500 to 600. It's not even the size of a medium-sized guild." As the leader of Jianye's Overlord Guild, Xie Xiyun could be said to be very familiar with all the big and small guilds in Jianye City. However, she knew very little about the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group. Xie Xiyun shook her head and decided not to think about it. She smiled bitterly and said, "This nephew of yours is really mysterious. He's thousands of miles away, but he's actually so familiar with a mercenary group in Jianye City. Since he mentioned it, there must be a deeper meaning. How about this, I'll help you contact the Black Mamba Snake and see what his attitude is." Okay. Although Lin Jing ridiculed Ouyang Shua, she was still very attentive to his instructions. The Rattlesnake Mercenary Group S base was chosen in a very inconspicuous courtyard in Jianye City. If it wasn't for Snow-Fallen Rose's omnipresent influence in Jianye City, they might not have been able to find it. Xie Xiyun and Lin Jing decided to personally pay a visit. "Who are you?" The guard at the door was very vigilant. This kind of occasion was usually handled by Xie Xiyun. She smiled and said, "We are Snow-Fallen Rose. We would like to pay a visit to your leader. Please inform him." There were very few adventure-type players in Jianye City who didn't know the name of Snow-Fallen Rose. The guard naturally wasn't ignorant. He was shocked, but he didn't show it on his face. He expressionlessly said, "Please." Xie Xiyun and Lin Jing looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. The quality of the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group was a little too high. Even a guard had such composure. They really hid their strength well. Xie Xiyun's heart trembled. There was such a mercenary group hidden in Jianye City, and she actually didn't know about it. It was really a dereliction of duty. It seemed like she had to re-evaluate the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group. The reason why Ouyang Shua wanted to use Lin Jing as a middleman was not only to ensure smooth communication between adventure-type players, but also to indirectly remind them that the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group wasn't simple. As a mercenary group, the main business of the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group was to carry out kidnappings, assassinations, and other activities. It was extremely dangerous. The guard led the two to the guest room and said, "Please wait for a moment. I'll go and inform the leader." Xie Xiyun nodded and said politely, "Thank you." Not long after, a burst of hearty laughter came from outside the guest room. The person hadn't arrived yet, but the sound could already be heard. "Haha, our esteemed guests have arrived. Apologies for not going out to meet you." The voice was unusually bright and sunny. As they spoke, a middle-aged man walked into the reception room. This person had dark skin and a muscular body. He was tall and sturdy, and his face was resolute. His face looked as if it had been carved by a knife. He had a buzz cut and he exuded a masculine aura. Xie and Lin Jing stood up. They were astonished. The image of a black mamba didn't match the meaning of its name at all. It was very strange. "Sorry to disturb you," Xie said. The black mamba nodded and sat on the seat of honor. He said with a smile, "It's my honor to invite the two giants of the Snow Rose to come together." In fact, the black mamba was also very surprised by their visit. After the two sides exchanged greetings, Xie decided not to beat around the bush. She said, "I'm here to visit your group and get to know you better. More importantly, I've been entrusted by someone." The black mamba's eyes narrowed, and his momentum changed again. It was so oppressive that they couldn't breathe. He didn't expect that he would still attract the attention of others even though he was so low-key. "May I know who entrusted you with this?" the black mamba asked in a deep voice. Xie was shocked and her heart trembled. Fortunately, she was not an ordinary person. She said calmly, "The Lord of Shanhai County and the Marquis of Lian Province are not naked." "What a great Buddha! No wonder the two of you came." The black mamba looked at the two women inquisitively. It seemed to want to understand the relationship between the Snow Rose and Shanhai County. Xie ignored the other's inquisitive eyes and said concisely, "The Lord of Wui wants to cooperate with your group. What do you think?" "Cooperate? What cooperation?" the black mamba asked in surprise. He felt as if he was seen through by the Lord who was thousands of miles away and had never met before. This feeling was very uncomfortable. Xie shook her head. "As for the specific content of the cooperation, you need to personally discuss it with the Lord of Wui. However, with the Lord of Wui's reputation, he won't speak without thinking." The black mamba's eyes narrowed again. Even if Xie didn't say it, he was also prepared to meet the legendary Lord of China. He wouldn't feel at ease if he didn't figure out the other party's background. "All right." The rattlesnake opened its doors to do business. Naturally, there's no reason to shut business out. "President Shang, please tell the Marquis of Lian Province that I can visit Shanhai County at any time." The black mamba returned to his original demeanor as if he was a serious businessman. Xie nodded and left with Lin Jing. To be continued. Chapter 249. On the 14th of October, Ouyang Shuo received the blueprints and a reply from his aunt, Lin Jing. Ouyang Shuo threw the blueprints to Bai Nanpu in the next room and asked him to send them to Beihai County. Then, he told Beihai County to start the shipyard's upgrade immediately. Ouyang Shuo returned to his office and opened the letter. In the letter, his aunt stated that she had contacted the leader of the rattlesnake mercenary group, Black Mamba. Black Mamba was very interested in his proposal and was willing to visit Shanhai County. Ouyang Shuo nodded. As expected, no one could ignore Shanhai County now. He immediately wrote a letter to Black Mamba, inviting him to Shanhai County the next day to discuss the cooperation. Since he still had time, Ouyang Shuo went to the military factory in the suburbs to retrieve a batch of military pellets to prepare for the upcoming battle on the Moon Island. In order to increase the odds of success, the shipyard was following Ouyang Shuo's request to upgrade the 25 battleships of the North Sea Fleet by installing iron plates and collision rams. The bigger secret weapon was the fierce fire oil. Ouyang Shuo wanted to see how the pirates' wooden battleships would deal with the fierce fire oil arrows. The next day, Black Mamba arrived on time. Ouyang Shuo received the mercenary leader in the side hall of the Marquis Mansion. Following the Black Mamba were two other people. According to the Black Mamba's introduction, they were Viper and Cobra. Ouyang Shuo knew that the members of the Rattlesnake mercenary group were the absolute core members of the group. On the Shanhai County side, only Guo Hongliang, the head of the military bureau, accompanied them. "Marquis of Lian Province, why did you invite us here?" Black Mamba went straight to the point. Ouyang Shuo knew that the other party had many doubts. If he didn't dispel their wariness, there would be no way to cooperate sincerely. He nodded and said, "I know that your mercenary group is an international mercenary group in reality. This invitation is for you to return to your old profession." Black Mamba's eyes narrowed. His premonition had come true. In fact, being a mercenary wasn't a shameful profession. Especially after the interstellar migration, there was nothing to hide. What Black Mamba was surprised about was how the other party knew his background. Ouyang Shuo had made things clear because he did not want the two sides to be entangled in a dispute over their identities. The Black Mamba serpent was indeed an ambitious and ruthless person. After making things clear, he didn't try to conceal anything and frankly said, "Marquis Lian Province truly deserves his reputation. I'm really curious about what kind of cooperation we can carry out now." "It's actually very simple," Ouyang Shuo explained. "I hope that your mercenary group can send a team of instructors to be stationed in Shanghai County. Help the military of Shanghai County train an elite special forces unit. How does that sound?" Ouyang Shuo's idea was very simple. He wanted to transfer the concept of special operations from the modern army to the ancient cold weapon army. This was very difficult and a little whimsical. Non-professionals could not do it. Rattlesnake was a famous international mercenary group, and it was the elite among the elite mercenaries. Its combat strength and combat methods were comparable to ordinary special forces. The Black Mamba snake was really stunned. He couldn't help but be shocked by Ouyang Shuo's wild imagination. This was the advantage of being an outsider. Ouyang Shuo didn't know anything, so he dared to think. Of course, this was also closely related to Ouyang Shuo's precise understanding of the game. In Ouyang Shuo's mind, there was no such thing as a game. He interpreted the game as the real world. Ouyang Shuo didn't think that there was anything wrong with transferring modern knowledge to the ancient setting. He was a pragmatist through and through. The Black Mamba snake and the others had a fixed mindset. They thought that a game was a game and should be separated from reality. The setting of the game was ancient society, so it should be played according to the ancient model. Ouyang Shuo noticed that the eyes of the viper, who was standing behind the Black Mamba snake, lit up. He seemed to be excited by Ouyang Shuo's wild idea. The members of the Rattlesnake mercenary group were all mercenaries. They didn't need special training in the game. Their way of thinking and action had subconsciously moved closer to the Special Operations Unit. Perhaps they didn't even realize it, because this way of thinking had already seeped into their bones and became instinctive. The topic proposed by Ouyang Shuo was undoubtedly a great challenge for these warmongers. They weren't afraid of challenges in their bones. Instead, they enjoyed challenges. The more difficult it was, the more fighting spirit they had. As the leader of the Black Mamba snake, the unstable factors in its bones were actually the most intense. He was also the calmest. Although he couldn't wait to help Ouyang Shuo finish this interesting topic for free, his rationality reminded him to fight for the interests of the group. The Black Mamba snake tried hard to control his emotions and said calmly, "Marquis Lian's suggestion is interesting. I just don't know what you're willing to pay." Ouyang Shuo obviously knew what the rattlesnake snake needed urgently. It was a reward they couldn't refuse. "I'm willing to use the god's crossbow as a reward. This amount." Ouyang Shuo extended 5 fingers. 50? The Black Mamba snake wasn't satisfied. It was just as Ouyang Shuo had expected. As mercenaries, the god's crossbow was the most suitable weapon among the cold weapons. 50 was close to the Black Mamba snake's expectation. "No." Ouyang Shuo shook his head and said, "It's 500. Even with the Black Mamba snake's calmness, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. 500 god's crossbows could basically equip the Rattlesnake mercenary group. With the current market price, the total value wouldn't be less than 8,000 gold coins. Good. The black mamba snake slapped the table and said excitedly, "Marquis Lien is really generous. We'll accept this business. Don't worry, the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group will definitely send the best instructors to Shanghai County." Ouyang Shua's forthrightness completely convinced the black mamba snake, making it approve of this cooperation from the bottom of its heart. Ouyang Shua nodded. This was exactly what he hoped for. Next, the two parties discussed the details of the cooperation further. The two parties agreed that the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group would send 10 core members, including Viper and Cobra, to Shanghai County until a special force was trained for Shanghai County. At noon, Ouyang Shua hosted a banquet for the Black Mamba Snake and the other two at Sangha Restaurant. At the banquet, the Black Mamba Snake couldn't help but sigh. He raised the 3-flower wine in his cup and said with a smile, as expected of the best county in the world, "This has really opened my eyes." Ouyang Shua nodded and smiled without saying anything. After the banquet, the Black Mamba Snake immediately returned to Janya, while Viper and Cobra stayed behind. To train a Special Forces unit, the first step was to select the best of the best. Without a doubt, the first one that came to Ouyang Shua's mind was the Imperial Guards Brigade. All the soldiers of the Imperial Guards Brigade would participate in this selection. At the same time, in order to prevent other troops from saying that he was biased, Ouyang Shua stipulated that each of the 5 brigades of the 1st Division was allowed to recommend a platoon of soldiers to participate in the selection. The 3 city guard brigades of Shanghai County, Pool Water County and Yi County could recommend 50 soldiers to participate in the selection. Other than that, Ouyang Shua also requested for the spies from the Military Intelligence Department to participate in the selection. One of the most important skills for a Special Force member was investigation. The Military Intelligence Department undoubtedly needed such professional training. After understanding the situation, the 3 heads of the Military Intelligence Department applied to join the training. Ouyang Shua's urging was still fresh in their minds. Now that they had the opportunity to receive professional intelligence investigation training, they definitely wouldn't want to miss it. Considering that the recent intelligence work wasn't urgent, Ouyang Shua agreed to their application. At this point, the number of soldiers participating in the preliminary selection had reached more than 3,250. Ouyang Shua didn't set a specific elimination quota. It was entirely based on the assessment of the instructor. Those who passed would stay, and those who didn't would be eliminated. After confirming the soldiers participating in the selection, the second step was to build a specialized training base. The training base had to be built in the wilderness. Pool Water County was backed by a mountain forest, making it a more ideal choice. In the afternoon, Ouyang Shua personally brought Python and Cobra to the southern suburbs of Pool Water County to choose a location. Under the professional guidance of the two, they chose a mountain forest. The most special part of this mountain forest was that it had a pond. Not only was it good for water collection, but it was also good for the training. Other than that, they would also choose a fixed training base in Beihai County. Ouyang Shua specially invited Sun Xiaoye to draw up the blueprint of the training base under the guidance of Python and Cobra. Then, they handed it over to the construction division for construction. The training base was very professional and required many specialized training facilities. Some of the modern facilities, such as high-pressure water cannons, couldn't be implemented under the current conditions. They could only look for alternatives. The key to realizing Ouyang Shua's vision was whether or not a qualified training base could be built. This required Python and the rest to use their professional expertise to modify the modern special training subjects so that they could meet the requirements of the training subjects and could be implemented under the current conditions. Not only that, the construction of the training base also required the cooperation of various departments. Not only did it involve the construction division, but it also required the participation of the weapons workshop, carpentry workshop, and other departments. Ouyang Shua even specially invited Weapon Master Lu Mo to temporarily put down the research work of the No. 7 Research Institute and focus on cooperating with Python and the rest to carry out the limited modernization of the training base. In order to build the training base, Ouyang Shua didn't hesitate to mobilize all the resources in the territory. With Ouyang Shua's strong support, Python and the rest were full of energy. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the other 8 members of Rattlesnake came as reinforcements. The instructors began to devote themselves to the preparation of the training plan. The selection of soldiers and the construction of the training base would be carried out simultaneously. The soldiers recommended by the brigades would also need to go through an internal selection process. Before the construction of the training base, Python and the rest would go through a physical fitness test in the western suburbs of Shanghai County. It was also the first round of elimination. To be continued. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.